to your garden, I eat from your tree, I step in your river, and it takes me deep. Your heart is my temple, your tears rinse my feet. I walk out, I'm able to carry your peace. It reminds me of a song that I heard long ago. Maybe I've always known that you were right there. A simple melody playing over and over in my dreams.
What's up, everybody? We are live. It's Tuesday evening. We're here at True Sound Studios. This is episode 160 of the Young Lion TV podcast. And I'm here with the fellas. We're going to get into some things. Let's get it cracking. You're watching Young Lion TV.
Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, won't you get up and stop fighting? Everywhere I look, they're hiding. Young lion.
That's right. Episode 160. We're in the building. I got Stan with me this evening.
What up?
We got James, a.k.a. the half black, half Indian with the Spanish last name, Mr. James Garcia, a.k.a. Mr. Build Right himself, in the building. He's building my bathroom as we speak, and making way for our new studio, which we're going to be in really, really soon. We got Jake rocking the Back to Life t-shirt there, fresh off of vacation, looking nice and tan over there. And then we got John holding down production without a camera today. Sorry about that, brother. But I don't think he cares too much. He got his shades on. They look like shades.
They do like shades.
But shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in already. I see a bunch of people in there. Shout out to Wilmer. Shout out to Mom. Shout out to Thompson, our cousin. Michael Billingsley. That's our old music theory teacher from Camden County College in the building. Shout out to him. He's been following us. We actually ran into him at soccer just out of the blue. Wow. He came out there, played soccer at DeCou in Cherry Hill.
It's pretty good too.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good player. But it was just crazy. We haven't seen him since I left Camden County, but he was saying he's been following us the whole time. Okay. And so shout out to him in the chat room. Guys, if you're watching, we appreciate you, but we need you to hit that like button, and we also need you to share this video because the algorithms do not appreciate the topics that we touch on. You're looking at, a group of men in this building that talk about a lot of things that are considered controversial by the mainstream. Yeah. A lot of the things that we touch on, a lot of the perspectives that we have are not so highly favored by the algorithm. So if you guys share the video, it helps these conversations get out there. It helps a different perspective. It helps something that can counterbalance the mainstream narrative that we seem to get all the time, and also give a different perspective. Like tonight, we're going to talk about black culture. We're going to talk about Thomas Sowell. We're going to talk about I want to get into Milton Friedman a little bit. Like you were saying, we can pull up some stuff from him as well, which are two very renowned black intellectuals that I think are getting a lot more steam in today's day and age than
Milton Friedman is white.
Oh, well, yeah, Milton Friedman is white.
But Walter E. Williams.
Walter E. Williams, yes. But yeah, now nowadays, and I know us growing up, I'd heard nothing of these people. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And we were given the certain ones to look at as the shining examples of black intellectualism or whatever. But yeah, so we're gonna touch on those things, but of course we got to get into the other topics as well. But before we do that, guys, if you want to become a member, if you want to support what we're doing, other than just hitting that share button, hitting that like button, you can become a Patreon member and sign up and be a part of the Young Lion Pride. We're building this community up in a new way. We got a lot of new ideas that we want to get into this year and throughout the next year, and we're working on some stuff. So if you guys want to support that, we appreciate all the Patreon members that are in here right now. Everything that you guys do goes into us getting new equipment. Just got a bunch of new mic cables, and we just got a new computer that we're trying to set up, and we are trying to get more gear and bring this thing to higher quality for you guys. So everything that you do supports that. But yeah, there's different tiers on there, and also if you want to just support and throw a couple donations at us, you can hit us on the Cash App, which is just Young Lion TV on Cash App. And we have the website, Jatan.com, if you want to hear our music and get merch on there as well. We got a bunch of new songs that we've been writing and working on. And we got a show coming up on August 27th at the Gathering Place in Philly. James got his tickets already, he told me.
I just posted it on our page.
Just posted it on our page. Just shared it. So if you want to get your tickets to that one, it's a smaller venue, so you got to get your tickets quick because every time we do it, it sells out. So
Yeah, it's already halfway.
It's already halfway. Yeah, sold. So, get your tickets if you want to come see us live and get the full experience. It's it's going to be definitely some energy in the room. Last time it was kind of crazy. Like people were really feeling it. So, I think
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be different, man. We got a lot of new songs, a lot of stuff you never heard before. So, we're looking forward to
And
doing
music
that.
in an intimate setting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. You can really connect.
Yeah.
I like that type of setting, like especially the way they do it. Joy and Peace, who are going to be on the show with us. They are like, they're on the same page as us as far as like musically and what they're about spiritually and everything. So, it's always a good show when we do a show with them.
Shout out to Paul.
Paul Horner in the building. What's up? He's one of the Patreon members, one of the Young Lions.
And he's usually at the show, too.
Yeah, he'll be at the show. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We're actually working on a song for him. Paul is a musician. He's a
Okay.
guitarist and songwriter.
Yeah, I'll get to, and most of your fans don't know me. So
Yeah,
I'll get
yeah.
a chance to.
Yeah, that'll be
introduce
cool
myself,
too.
yeah.
Like it's for the people that have just seen you on the podcast,
Yeah.
you get to meet some of them
Right.
because they'll definitely be in the building. But yeah, Paul is working on a song that we're trying to get done for him. He wants us to put some vocals on it, so we're working on that. Just got back from vacation, so we can get back in the rhythm of things. This is why we missed the podcast last week because we were away. Me, Jake, and Simone went on a trip to Florida, to like the Orlando area, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Kids had a good time. Jake had some struggles.
Don't
But-
eat street food. I give me one of that and one of that.
Had nothing to do with street food. Yeah.
What do you think it had to
Weird
do
thing.
with?
I mean, I have no clue.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I think it might have.
You think it was
Like,
food though?
I think it might have had to. No, it happened before we even went.
No, I'm saying, but it started when we were in where were we? I can't even remember. now.
Louisiana.
Louisiana, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it had to do with eating that shrimp pasta?
I don't know. I know where it started at was I had a bump. I thought it was a mosquito bite.
Yeah,
I thought it might have been some kind of insect. I walk every morning.
yeah.
So maybe it had to do with that. I really don't know.
Got bit by something in the bayous.
All I know
Out
is
in the
for the
bayou.
Saying
whole
a secret.
for the whole vacation, my eye was like literally swollen out.
Yeah.
Like wore sunglasses everywhere.
Every morning we
I was
woke
on
up, Jake's
Benadryl.
eye was just swollen.
It's
Yeah.
getting bigger.
Yeah.
I was on Benadryl like I've never. I was telling Jamie like I learned to live in two realms at that point. Like
Right.
because usually Benadryl knocks me out, but I was taking it so much it was just like going. And then I had the antibiotics that I was on
Oh, boy.
because in the middle of this I'm going to the hospital. I went before I left because I had to drive down there. Right.
Oh, you drove down
I
there?
drove down there. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he drove to Florida, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, I
man.
drove. So I drove in the middle of the night. So I literally
He said,
got
I ain't flying all these kids out here.
yeah, saving money. So I got home from Louisiana that Sunday, right?
Right.
Went straight. I didn't even go home. I went straight to the emergency room
Oh, wow.
because I just wanted to make sure whatever this was.
Yeah.
They gave me like some. They didn't give me antibiotics. They gave me some kind of medicine that they said was better than Benadryl, which I don't think so. So I didn't even
you
take
did
that.
nothing? Oh, okay.
So I took it. Actually, I slept for like 6 hours when I got home, and then I woke up around 9. Put our stuff in the car and drove drove overnight. Yeah. And then I when I got there,
That's when your eye was like
yeah,
starting
my
to swell
eye
up.
was starting to swell up at that time,
Oh,
and then
wow.
literally through the whole thing. Then I went to the next day. It was really bad, so I stayed asleep till like 1.
Yeah,
Jamie
I came back from the pool and woke him up like, yo, you all right, man?
Dang.
Yeah.
And then I went to the emergency room again. They gave me antibiotics, but then they're like, stay out the sun. that's kind of impossible
Yeah,
being
yeah.
on
Not going to stay
vacation.
out the sun. He's at the
Yeah.
beach. He's at Universal. He's at
Yeah,
the
the Nick Fury,
yeah.
the Nick Fury eye patch.
So because of that, I got the worst sunburn I've ever gotten.
Wow.
Because I usually don't burn, I just get darker, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really bad, like I'll burn a little bit, but no, I burned on all my shoulders, like chest, everything was just burnt.
You
So,
listen to the doctors.
so I was burnt, I was swollen, I had rashes all over my body that were itching, like the craziest thing. But
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
but we were,
Yeah.
I wanted the kids to have fun, so
You sacrificed.
I sucked.
Well, I didn't
it
know
up.
you. I mean, dude, that's a.
Yeah, how long
Boy.
did it take you? Was it
Took me 16 hours.
16.
Yeah.
And you were that's not you're uncomfortable too. On top of that,
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, I guess driving, that takes your focus a little.
Yeah.
So maybe
you
it
drove the
wasn't-
whole thing.
I drove the whole thing. I let everybody sleep. I did it. That's the best way to do it overnight.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
when
oh,
I came home,
definitely. Hell yeah.
on my way home, we drove. I did this yesterday. I got in at like 11 something at night. So I woke up at 4:30, left at 5, and then I realized why I went
Yeah.
overnight
'Cause once
because
them kids
the,
wake up-
yeah, the
Yeah.
kids like we got to go to the bathroom. We stopped, go to the bathroom. One of the kids didn't go. They said they don't have to go. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, right.
Right. We get in the car. 20 minutes later, I got to go to the bathroom. So it's like that was
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
Stopping to eat so much. So it took us longer to get home.
And then they're antsy because they're in the car. They're probably making noise, messing with each other, all that.
Fighting.
Yeah.
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 It's hot.
Yeah.
Get off of me.
But it was fun though, man.
That's good.
Shout out to Wilmer. He said sharing is caring. Courtney Davis, how you doing? Courtney is a new Patreon member, one of our newest, and a young lion. And don't worry, Courtney, we are sending you your T-shirt. I promise you. We just got back from vacation, so as soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna wrap that up and send it to you. Stephanie said she shared. Paul, Stephanie said, "Hey, Louisiana mosquitoes are flipping hawks with venom." Yeah. Yeah. You think that's what it was, man? One of them Louisiana
I don't know.
Louisiana
I have no
mosquitoes.
idea.
Probably, man. Especially because you didn't notice it.
Yeah, but I had
Well, you-
I had jeans on. I don't know if that matters, but I had long pants on. That's why I was like, maybe it happened when I went walking on Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm still dealing with it today. Like I'm itching on my arms. Yeah.
Yo, speaking of Louisiana, though, like, Louisiana is such a unique state.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it's its own thing. When you go there, like, the whole vibe there it's not like any other state in the country.
Yeah.
Just like the people there, the culture there.
Yeah.
It's something different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think like everyone needs to go and experience that.
Visit. Yeah.
And not just New Orleans.
No, not just New Orleans. Yeah, like
I
go
went
to
to-
New Orleans, see the French Quarters, all that, but you got to go to like the country parts.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in the United States to see.
Yeah.
You know that's amazing. You know.
Yeah, that's one of the sad things is that a lot of people don't travel. They don't go they don't see any of the country.
Right.
You know, they see their neighborhood. They think that's all there is.
Vacation means usually out of the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are in a unique situation because you're musicians, so you're gonna see the United States, but you're really seeing like more like the theater and like the venue side.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Sometimes we don't really get to see much.
We try to go out as much as we can,
Yeah.
experience the food,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
That's about all we get a chance to do.
Right.
That's why James always says, y'all ain't really doing no shows. Y'all just find excuses to go eat different places. Mom said, where's Simone? Simone is spending some family time with his son right now. Stephanie said, true, I'm from Houma in the area of the Bayou. Area that Bayou People was filmed. And it's just like that. I never saw Bayou People.
neither.
But I did see that movie. What was that movie that we told y'all to watch? And you were like, yo, this is crazy.
I don't remember the name of it, but it had to do with that.
It was in Louisiana, but it was like,
It's after Katrina.
it was after Katrina. It was in like this small area, this really, really like country area that was abandoned after Katrina, but there was people that still lived there. They didn't want to leave, and they're super like they just live off the land. They go fish in the water, and but it was like a condemned area. It's like trash there. Like
Wow.
they live in squalor. Like, and the whole movie is about like this man who has this daughter, and he's trying to raise her and raise her in that, you know what I mean, and raise her to survive in that. And it's just like, it's crazy. You have to see it because it's just it is like that's how Louisiana is, man. It's its own, like the way they're talking, the whole vibe, the whhole culture of it. It's its own thing, man.
Did you say it's based off a true story, or is it?
It's based off of a true area, like a real
Area, but not
most of the
just
people in that movie are real people from that area. Like those people really lived. They weren't actors. You know what I mean?
I'll have to revisit it.
Yeah.
You know, check it out.
Yeah, because you gotta get out of the mindset of like, oh, this is some artsy weird movie.
Right.
Like they're
When does
actually,
Captain America swoop in?
yeah, right. No, they're depicting like a real. That's how those people really live. You know.
But you and my sister do have a knack for like B movies off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So that's not something that
Yeah.
a lot of people would
That's
go
because
for.
they're like, what can we watch?
Yeah.
There's nothing to watch.
There's nothing.
Let's see what this is.
Yeah. What is this? You
And
watch the trailer and you're like, oh, okay.
And it's funny to watch their excitement. Usually when I come over and I see them, I'm like, "What are you guys watching?" And they're like, "All right, so check it out. So he was a wolf. This is a dog. And over here, and then they eat."
I experienced that when we were on vacation because we
vacation.
stayed in the same Airbnb.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Liz is trying to find stuff. She
Yeah.
can't find anything. Oh, what about this? But we were doing stuff. It was mostly
Yeah.
her and Leslie.
Leslie.
Yeah.
They couldn't agree on nothing to watch.
No.
Yeah. So they ended up watching something,
All right.
and then they weren't really into it, but then
Yeah.
they got into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny.
I ended up watching that movie that you were watching when we got back. The Ryan Gosling movie, the new
Gray
one,
Man?
new one on Netflix. Gray Man.
I haven't
yeah.
finished it yet.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is it good?
It's pretty cheesy.
It's like so. It's like take John Wick, Bourne, and James Bond. Put those all three.
Yeah.
Put those three together, and that's what this movie is.
In a world,
Yeah.
one man,
It is like
desire,
that.
romance.
And it's funny because it's just, and then sprinkle a little bit of Fast and Furious on top.
Yeah, right.
There's some
They're running out of
unbelievable
ideas.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's what John Wick had unbelievable
yeah,
stuff.
that's
too,
true.
you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, I think I said this before, but I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day. We were talking about Thor that we saw, and I was like, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, I got to give Top Gun a lot of credit. That's the last movie I've seen. Well, not the last one, but second to last one that I've seen. That was just a good movie.
Yeah.
It had no agenda. It had no.
I still haven't seen
No,
it, man.
nothing. It was
I want to
just-
see it.
It's a good one.
It was a good movie, man. I like that Tom Cruise stuck to his guns and said, "Look, we're not gonna bring in any woke culture. We're not gonna bring in unnecessary characters. We're gonna just stick to a good movie." And it was just like it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was action packed.
Yeah.
Like that era. I feel like that era is like gone. It's just like
Yeah.
always something. You're like, this one was a good movie, man.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, though? Because Top Gun proved that people still want to see those type
Right.
of movies. Like it did
Yeah.
amazing numbers.
Well, now they know. Apparently at Comic-Con, who's the director that did? I guess the main guy that used to do Marvel stuff.
Feige.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he came out and said he made a surprise visit and
Right.
said that they're going to get back
Yeah.
to their formula that
Yeah.
worked and not bringing all the woke stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I think that in the attempt to try and appeal to everybody, it crashed and burned. And not to pick on the women in this sense, but there was maybe about 3 years ago there was a rash of like reboots with like all female
Ghostbusters. That was horrible.
Charlie's Angels got
Charlie, I mean Oceans.
I can't
Ocean's,
remember
yeah.
Ocean's
Ocean's
11, but then there was
11.
Charlie's
Angels.
Angels reboot with like Kristen Stewart from Twilight and a couple others and like Zoe
That was a while
Kravitz.
ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After the
Yeah.
Vanessa?
But it was like supposed to be more badass.
Oh,
and
okay.
asses of the asses. But anyway, it's like, not knocking on that, but I think that those stories are so overdone, and when it's injected with like fake wokeness, crowds don't really go for it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even with like the superhero stuff. Like I grew up loving comics, but now it's a little bit It's like the stories aren't as good as
they get away from the stories and
and they have to rewrite it for the fans who aren't aware of the source material.
Right.
So it's meant to be more inclusionary to now, and it's decent, like graphic wise, but
story.
that's why, like I said, I really appreciated that because that was true to what Top Gun was, but it showed a new dynamic of him after. So I don't know if you see it.
I didn't see Top Gun.
Check it out.
Yeah, I want to. I did hear though that the only pushback was that they got rid of the Chinese emblem or something.
Yeah.
That he was wearing.
No,
because
it was Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
They got rid of that.
Got to bend somehow. You know what I mean?
They didn't want to offend China. But other than that,
But they ended up bringing that back, right?
Did they?
Because I
Okay.
think
I
China
think
ended up banning it anyway.
Yeah.
Screw you.
So they brought it back.
That's what, they'll never be satisfied. So
Right.
stop trying to bend to them.
Yeah.
The CCP, I'm talking about, or the woke crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll never be satisfied either.
Nope.
So stop doing it. I think that's the lesson that came with Thor, because the
Thor,
first weekend it did great, but then they were saying that the second weekend it's going to tell, and it flopped.
Yeah.
Why? You watched it, right?
I watched it. It was too silly. It was I think the silliness of how they made him in the last couple of movies, they made it stick to his character. So he's kind of goofy and
Yeah, because he was goofy in like the last Avengers when he was all drunk and fat, right? Like they tried to go down that route.
Was he overly gay or anything?
No, he wasn't gay, but there was definitely a lot of reference to to that,
Maybe that's what.
Not nothing to. I mean, it's in everything, but it's just like again, there's really nothing to do with the story. It's just mentioned in there, so they're just throwing that in there
Unnecessarily.
unnecessarily.
Okay.
Okay, so Liz said the name of that movie was Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Oh, she's listening.
No, I texted her.
Right.
The Louisiana movie.
Yeah,
Or a
because
documentary.
someone in the chat was trying to figure out what it was. It's called Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Yes.
It was a very, very interesting movie.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can pull up a trailer.
And where'd you see it at?
I saw it on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
They actually have some good stuff on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do, man. Did they ever bring back? Did you guys see Man in the High Castle?
No. I've never seen
Oh yeah. That's with that's from that prison, right? The military prison.
Was it a prison?
No, that was it was like an alternate universe of
If
the Nazis won.
yeah.
Oh, I've never seen that.
And taking over, they took
Oh, really?
America.
That sounds interesting.
They got some good content on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like I saw the Tomorrow People. That one was pretty decent.
What's that?
It's like they come back in time and they get like all the people that are dead in the future to help fight a war that's happening in the future.
Yeah.
Tomorrow War.
Tomorrow World.
Yeah, Tomorrow World.
Yeah.
Okay.
War. Yeah.
Tomorrow War.
That's crazy.
I think it was crazy.
It was all right.
I liked it.
Check it
Jake's too picky though.
Jake is very picky with movies.
I like that. I like that. That's with
Pull this up real quick, John. I'll just show this trailer so you can see how what I was talking about with this movie.
The whole universe depends on everything fitting together just right.
Yo, this kid was a great actor in this movie.
If
Like,
one
look,
piece
this is where they
busts,
live.
I remember this.
You saw
I was
this?
always like, this sound looks too.
the
Too
entire
artsy?
Yeah.
universe will get busted.
That's why I didn't want
The
to.
trailer is very artsy, but that movie itself, like, there is a lot of artsy elements to it.
Isn't this girl the girl that wanted to play Annie?
Is it?
I think it is. She looks familiar.
I'm your daddy. It's just my job to take care of you, okay?
All right. Well,
It's a good movie,
I'll
man.
give it a
All
look.
goes quiet behind my eyes.
Because, like, it's literally about an area of New Orleans, like, they got swallowed up by Katrina.
Flying
But there's
around
people that
in
still live
invisible
there.
pieces.
Right.
I see that I'm a little piece of a big, big universe.
But like these people have a community that none of them want to leave. Like they love being there, and it's like they live. Like there's a lot of these people in this scene. Like they're real people. That
All right,
live there.
fine, Jamie, you sold us. You guys need to get on it.
All right,
Watch
you
some
can put
crap.
that down. But I just thought of it because being in Louisiana and like.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a different because when you watch this, you're like, yo, that can't be somewhere in America. Like the way they talk, the way they,
Right.
the way they act. But like, yeah,
You got these subcultures in America. That's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight.
that is.
Hit it.
Before we get into that, first things first. Let's see what Joe Biden has got to say. Let's do a little bit of what's new with Uncle Joe. So, did you guys see his little gaffe when he was in Israel? This is a bad one. Did you see
I
this?
haven't seen this one.
No, you saw it, Jake?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a little watch.
I will once more return to the hollow ground of Yad Vashem to honor 6 million Jewish lives who were stolen in the genocide and continue, which we must do every day, continue to bear witness. To keep alive the truth and honor of the Holocaust, horror of the Holocaust, honor those we lost.
Truth and honor of the Holocaust. I mean, horror of the Holocaust.
Oh, why did they do this to poor Joe?
Joe, man.
Give him his injection. Go up there.
Yo, but they all they do is make excuses. Like,
Yeah.
now that he has the the Rona, his doctors are like in hiding. They won't talk to nobody.
We need to have him stop talking. Just say he has Rona.
Yeah.
Don't let him talk.
Because they don't want to face any questions
He got
about his
4 jabs and he still got corona.
and they don't want to talk about his cognitive abilities. So
Yeah.
they're
That's what I'm saying. That's why they said, just say he has it.
yeah,
Sit
right.
him down.
One of the doctors gave a presser where he was like, he ate all his food.
Dude, I
That's
saw that.
Remember I sent you guys?
Yes, that was
did
you
you?
that said that.
Yeah, I
Like,
heard
They had
it.
like a baby in front of it.
yeah, like he's a little kid. Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen
He
it.
ate all his food.
Yeah.
He even showed me his plate,
showed
and there was
me his
nothing but
plate,
crumbs
yeah.
on it.
Wow.
Like, it's like the
come
way
on,
you
man.
talk about
Right.
your like old dying grandmom or something.
Right.
You know, not the president.
Yeah.
Like, and the worst part is the media is like laughing and clapping, like,
Right.
like yo, that's so cute.
Right.
Like, dude, this is our
At
president,
least he's
bro.
okay,
Yeah.
but he's not.
So we are technically in a recession. You guys know the technical term of a recession is to go 2 quarters, without GDP growth, right? That is the technical definition.
That we've been going by forever.
For that we've been going by forever. So
Not according to the Dems.
so now we're gonna see how they're trying to spin this. This is who is this guy? This is Biden's economic advisor.
Many of you have reported on. As Secretary Yellen said on Sunday, 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of recession. It's not the definition that economists have traditionally relied on. There is an organization called the National Bureau of Economic Research, and what they do is they look at a broad range of data in deciding whether or not a recession has occurred. That is the problem. Many of you.
So we're gonna just swap out definitions on you, just like we did with the definition of
Isn't
a vaccine.
this what it has always it always happens?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they always want to just tell you what your fears are. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's not really that.
Nope.
The
And then most
definition that you
people-
know, don't think about that.
Yeah, and then everybody's just like, "Are we there yet? Okay, we're not." So we're good.
Let me look the other way.
Yeah. Here is a video of a little bit of pushback
Look, I think
from the journalists asking some real questions.
I think that was Ducey.
Is this who?
Peter Ducey.
Peter Ducey,
Asked him
yeah.
the pushback question.
Yeah, of course.
Having it both ways, Jared, because when the gas prices go up, it's got nothing to do with the president. When we see some decline, you want him to get the credit.
look, I think that there's no both way thinking here at all.
Having it both ways.
just a little clip. He didn't know how to answer that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Yeah. Because when the guy, this has nothing to do with the president. When the prices are up.
Putin price hike.
Yeah. But then when they go down, it's like, the president is doing everything he can. You know, the president has done this. Okay, let's just bang through these. So monkeypox.
Oh boy.
Monkeypox. Hold on a second. Let me find some stuff on this, because they are really trying to cover this up. So there was a video that I had of people lining up in New York to get monkeypox vaccines, but they took it down from Twitter. So we're gonna play the video of the CDC director talking about.
Why did they take it down from Twitter?
Because of the look of it. You know what I mean? There was a certain element that was all lined up. But we're gonna let the CDC director tell us about what's going on with this.
Both of those children are traced back to.
Oh, first of all, let me set this up. So, first cases of monkeypox in children. There's 2 children that caught monkeypox in the U.S., and she's going to explain what's going on there.
We have seen now 2 cases that have occurred in children. Both of those children are traced back to individuals who come from the men who have sex with men community, the gay men community.
Oh, can't get that out.
So when we have seen those cases in children, they have generally been what I call adjacent to the community most at risk.
Wait, what? Adjacent. And then, like, people were posting up the news article, be like, are we not allowed to ask questions about this?
Right. That's what's so unfair. It's like, again, they're attaching this sense of judgment. If you ask, it's like, why can't the public ask these questions?
Yeah.
It's just weird how she worded that. It's crazy.
Men who have sex with men.
Yeah. Like, that's when I'm like, what? Yeah. Like the way she had to try to get around. You can see her eyes.
Yeah.
She can't say gay.
She didn't want to say that.
Yeah. Exactly. How do I say this?
Yeah.
Yeah, the gay community, it might be bad. Well, it is bad. But everyone else, which is why, did you see the WHO director? Same thing. Like, he went against his panel and declared monkeypox
global pandemic.
Global pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not affecting it. It might be a pandemic amongst that community.
Right, right.
But it doesn't affect everybody.
Right.
No.
So, and that's the other thing, too, is, right? So usually people, quote unquote, directors or whatever it is, they're really talking to newscasters, so they're going to ask a certain question. They're not really. They should be a group of their peers should be able to ask them questions too.
Yeah,
where they can get up there and answer these questions. But if you're speaking, everything is decided.
These news people don't know what to ask them.
No, and a lot of times, if they do go before a media personality, it's already predetermined what you're going to say and how you're going to do it. So there's no pushback at all. You know what I mean?
Definitely
Just
not.
Further the narrative if they ask a question.
Yeah, if you're assigned a position as public health liaison, you should be answering towards the press so they can report that. But they would never do that. They just go on for a segment for 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of pre-prepared questions, and they're gone.
Stephanie said BS. And then she said about Biden, he's just a puppet. Their plan is coming into fruition. Who will take over when he passes on is deemed unfit. Well, we know who that's gonna be.
Yeah, and you got a video of her.
Hell,
I know she's
Kamala.
She had a few
Did she?
Veep moments.
I don't have any videos on her. So if you got any, send them to me.
She's trying out her new giggle.
I got some other stuff.
Daily Wire. Yeah.
I got AOC. Blowing the cover off of the January 6th thing. You guys see that? Where she was out there talking to somebody.
These insurrectionists.
Like Antifa?
And that there were...
Dude was like Antifa. Then she just keeps going.
These insurrectionists.
Like Antifa?
And that there were actual officers working with this, and we never got to the bottom of that, and we never got any answers about that. And then to this day, we're just supposed to pretend that that never happened.
What about Antifa?
I have no idea what happened to the people on the inside who were very clearly sympathetic with what was going on and opening the doors wide open for that. And I'm supposed to sit here and pretend like none of that ever happened, and then right afterwards you have a massive, you just have this idea that throwing money at that problem is going to make it go away without any accountability. And so this is where these things are breaking down. We're not safe. And it's not just about members of Congress not being safe. The food staff workers aren't safe. The janitors aren't safe. Like, we need to get to the bottom of this. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Congressman.
So what she just did was expose what everyone's been saying the whole time. Like, who let these people in? Who opened the doors up? Why was there no security? Why was there no police? And then I just saw this the other day. This is actually a video that leaked from inside the building. So you can kind of see what's going on here. They lay it out for you. This is inside the Capitol on January 6th. As a coordinated group attempts to pull police away from the east doors on the outside, George Tenney tries to open them from the inside. This guy's trying to open the doors, right? He can't because these doors are magnetic. Which is what people were saying. Like, how do they get the magnetic doors open? So now he's looking up at the cameras and pointing to the door. This guy is already inside. This guy with the whole outfit on. He's not been arrested or was taken off the FBI list.
Come on, Bill, hit the switch.
Right. This guy is like, he's instructing someone to disable the locks.
Checks in the mail.
When he tries the door, now they open. Now the door is open. Nothing to see here at all.
Now remember, guys, push me down so it looks good.
Right. This is totally how you keep people out of a building. He pulls Officer BA who was blocking the entry. Officer appears to grab their gun and then men retreat. And then you see everyone flooding in to open doors. They're pushing officers out of the way, stopping them from blocking people. Like, this makes no sense, dude.
Yeah.
And why they won't release the video, the whole, 14,000 hours?
Yeah. Because they know it would be more stuff like this.
Yeah.
It'll be more stuff like this that shows that, like, wait a minute. Why are they letting people in?
And remember, guys, when you get in, go to the left.
Right. He's literally looking up at the camera like, hey, man, the door's locked. Release the magnets. All right. Moving on. Let's see if we got any comments real quick. George said, what up, squad? What's up, George? Stephanie says, send me that link. I'll post it up for you guys in the chat. Oh, I think I already deleted it. Yeah, I already deleted it. Sorry. Just look it up. It's all over Twitter. All over Twitter. I wanted to show this article. I wanted to show this this article from the New England Journal of Medicine. Says now that the unvaccinated COVID patients are contagious for less time than those vaxxed or boosted. This is coming out now. I don't know, I guess natural immunity.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something might be more effective.
A guy who's unvaxxed wrote that.
He's an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah. Did you see Fauci is saying that we've always known about natural immunity?
Yeah, now he's changing his tune completely.
Right.
Of course you always knew about it.
Yeah.
Is he about to be retired?
He's about to be fired, bro.
Yeah, they said that, but then he's like, I'm not leaving.
I am not leaving.
He's
the Bilbo Baggins of the White House. I ain't leaving the precious.
He ain't giving up that cushy
course.
job he's got.
Yeah.
A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that people vaccinated against COVID-19 remain contagious with the virus for a longer period of time than their unvaccinated counterparts. The disparity in contagiousness was particularly pronounced between the unvaccinated and individuals who do not receive booster shots. The findings were published in a letter to the editor signed by dozens of doctors from a variety of hospitals in Boston, Massachusetts, in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine in June from July 2021 through January 2022. Researchers studied 66 participants who contracted COVID-19, including 32 people with the Delta variant and 34 people with the Omicron variant. Researchers compiled a variety of graphs tracking how long people remained contagious with the virus using both PCR tests and viral cultures as indicators. You can see the two graphs there. But yeah, guys, check out this article. Basically, just another like jab at this.
So more things that if you would have said last year, that
you would
would
be
have got
banned.
you banned.
You
Yeah,
would be banned.
That's the truth.
And
But-
our mom got COVID this week.
Yeah.
Well, last weekend
In Florida,
while we
yeah.
were.
But she's been
our grandma.
Our grandma got it. She's 91 years old.
92.
92? Yeah. She just turned 92?
Mhm.
Yeah. 92 years old, got COVID. My mom went to go take care of her because they didn't know she had COVID at the time. And, of course, she got it. So she's back home now. But the beauty is, like, first of all, my grandma survived it.
Yeah.
She just got home. That's cool. But my mom...
Never vaxxed.
Yeah. My grandma was never vaxxed.
Yeah.
Never vaxxed.
And also the way they treated her was different
Yeah.
than how they would have treated like your
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah, in Florida, like, and my mom specifically called them and said, do not give her remdesivir. You know what I mean? Which, you know, we know now what it does. And it's sad that that was the first thing they were doing for especially like elderly patients. Because we're learning, like we know that medicine is wrong sometimes. We know that they mess up.
Yeah, but you can't. That's the problem, though. It's like, you know, even if they're wrong, the way the hospitals are, you know, set
system.
up.
Yeah.
You really can't do anything.
Right.
Because
What can you
sign
do?
your life away. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you can if you know. If you don't know,
Yeah.
because you can tell them this is not. I don't want this. I don't want that.
Yeah, you have to know ahead of time.
Yeah.
And that's the other problem is, like, we're taught to just trust the experts, trust the science, trust the medicine. And it's like they mess up all the time. Look, I
I
saw
mean,
this-
look, I
Go
just
ahead.
dealt with what I dealt with.
Yeah.
They don't know what happened. They don't know what I got. They don't,
Same
and they
thing.
don't want to
Remember-
really
remember me.
Yeah.
I got a bill sitting at home right now for a bunch of work that they did for nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That was totally wrong.
And the thing is, it's not like they're really attempting to solve it.
Yeah. Right.
They're just trying to, oh, you got that on you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
They're just trying to
Bill
give
the
you some
insurance.
stuff.
Yeah.
They're not really trying to get to the root cause.
Right,
No.
right. Which is kind of the thing, you know, part of the problem too is, I mean, I know that in an emergency you have to go to the ER, right? But I think one thing is, for a lot of people, they're discovering that having a primary doctor is probably your best bet, because a lot of times, let's say you do have to go to the ER. After that's done, that information is forwarded to your primary, and they can look it over. And an example of what I'm talking about is this. For a lot of people who have been listening to the show, a while back, Jamie had mentioned about a woman named Elizabeth Holmes, who came up with a company called Theranos. And this was supposed to be the breakthrough of breakthroughs in blood testing, correct?
Yep.
All right. Well, she was hailed by Clinton, Henry Kissinger. All these politicians got involved with this company that was supposed to be a breakthrough. It was supposed to be minutes in terms of reading.
She
of
was
your
on the
blood
cover
test.
of Forbes magazine.
She was on USA Today. She was
Tech
on ABC.
billionaire.
Yeah.
They were
the whole nine. I mean, everybody.
Matter of fact, they just did a show about it on Hulu, which is really good. She's played by Amanda Seyfried.
Okay.
So if
I'll have
you
to
want
check
to
it out.
check that out. They do a whole series about the
Right.
whole journey of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was hailed as this whiz kid, specifically being a woman, a white blonde woman on top
Yeah,
of that with a
right.
deep voice,
Mhm.
kind of very
faked deep voice.
fake deep voice.
Yeah.
Very what's the Apple guy?
Steve
she's
Jobs.
very Steve
She was obsessed with Steve Jobs. She wanted to be
Obsessed
the
with that.
female.
But I
Steve
think it was
Jobs.
like whoever she was partners with, they helped craft that image, right?
The Indian guy.
Kalwani or something like that.
Yeah. That was her main financial backer in the beginning, who ended up being her boyfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saying all of that to say, look into this, because here's what happened. During this time, they started to unroll these things, these vials that were supposed to test blood and give you an instant result, so you don't have to wait weeks and blah, blah. And it's supposed to be within minutes.
And could do tests on anything.
Right. And it would detect cancer,
Yeah.
detect all these other things. Well, guess what happened? A woman was diagnosed with this, right? Cancer, et cetera, et cetera. They sent it off. Legally, they have to send it off to her primarily. They did. And he was like, he looked into it himself.
Yeah.
He was like, that's not true.
Yeah.
And he began to push back. Now, there were people on the inside that were questioning the practice or the method in which they were doing it. But because that primary said no, because he was like, this makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
And then it began to unfold.
That's what opened the door to all the
because
investigations.
He was willing to risk he was like, no, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is why primaries are needed. You need to have a relationship with a personal doctor because a lot of times they'll be able to tell you, hey, I wouldn't take that.
And that's why also you can't just always trust what these experts are telling you because a lot of times there's a lot of money, a lot of investors involved, and they will fudge numbers and fake things. And like we found out from her case that they faked so many studies, they faked so many.
Yes.
So
and
many
they were on the
things
cusp, but I don't think people understand. Most people don't even know this, but they don't understand what this. She was on the verge of like multi-billion dollar industry.
They were talking about changing medicine forever.
Yeah.
You know, and speaking of that, that leads right into this article that I saw that I wanted to show you guys, that it's going viral. 2 decades of Alzheimer's research may be based on a deliberate fraud that has cost millions of lives. So basically, they're finding out that all of the research was faked, all of the studies, same type of deal, and they based all of these diagnoses and like medical decisions off of fake, fraudulent data. You know, this happens all the time.
But see, the thing is, it gets pushed back in the articles. No one knows this
right
stuff, you know what I mean?
And no one will talk about. You won't see this in New York Times or you won't see this on CNN. You know,
right. It's corruption, and corruption corrupts. Like literally, when you have ignorance, when you have very superficial understandings, and then you have people who are supposed to be the experts, they're the ones that are supposed to be going deeper. And then when you don't have them actually doing the work, they're giving you they're giving you superstitions.
Yeah.
Right.
Because superstitions are superficial, right? Understandings that seem deep, but they're not.
Yeah.
So you get this all the time. Thomas Sowell we're going to talk about him today, but I was watching something that he was talking about where he did some work in Washington, and this is when he said it opened him up to how bad government is when you give it over to them. And it had to do with Puerto Rico. I think it was in the 60s, maybe late 60s, how the unemployment rate, like they had actually upped the minimum wage, but the unemployment rate went down, right? Or actually went up, I should say. Meaning people were losing their jobs. And they were trying to figure out if it had to do with this crop issue, right? And he figured something out. And when he figured it out, he went and told the people who were in charge of this government assistance, and they're looking at him. He's like, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're looking at me like I'm crazy is because if we solve this problem, they don't have a job.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's more
They're not gonna, like, we're
that's
not
not
gonna do-
a good incentive,
Right.
because now the whole reason why they have this job is to deal with and solve something that they don't really want to solve. And this is what you have. So you have all these government pushed and backed, I don't know what to call them. Programs or
positions,
studies,
whatever. I'm trying to think of the right word. But anyway, you have these things that the government implements, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do this. We're going to do this over here. We're going to do this thing. And the reason why a lot of times they're not effective is because it's just a way for people to benefit themselves when they get in those positions. You know, they don't really want to help. And you can even start out wanting to help. I mean, and look at who we just talking about? Elizabeth Holmes. Like, at the beginning of that, when you watch, and I don't know how accurate the movie is, but it kind of seems like she really wants to do something, right? But the problem is,
I think she really wants to be somebody more than do something.
I think you're right. But even that will get exposed, right? Like, what supersedes? You really want to, people always, I want to change the world, right? Do you want to change the world, or do you want to be the one that changes the world?
Right.
You know, is that what you're, you know, so now it becomes, I want to be the one that changes the world, or I want to change the world. And that's two different things, because it's like, you're putting yourself first. That's selfish, right? And if it doesn't have to do with you, then it all falls apart, right? You don't want it to, if it's not dealing with you, then it circumvents everything you really want to do, right? And even with us, like, I know this with music, like we say we want to do something, right? But then as we go through it, you get hit with all these obstacles, and either you're going to die to yourself, lay down your life, right, and continue, or you're going to compromise and just get along and say, and that's what they do. Like, you can, if you compromise, you're going to have to do the things we tell you for a little while.
Right.
But the thing is, now you will open the door to you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what
you see that with Elizabeth Holmes through that journey. Is it's just one compromise after the next after the next,
to the point where she doesn't literally a full-on narcissist that can't see a lie in front of her face if it spit on her, right? Because she's so caught up in her own lie that she misses it all. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happens a lot. So now it's like I don't think most people are just inherently evil, right? But we are perverted and corrupt, right? So we might want to do something good, but in our attempts to do something good, it corrupts. It brings more corruption. Right. You know?
Shout out to Emma. He said, hello, guys. What's up, Emma?
And I want to make this point real quick. It's a short one. But this is why I said the last time we were here about the media. There was a time when the media were local people within the neighborhood. It was communal based, and your information came from people sort of living the life that you lived in your neighborhood, you know. And they were journalists, and they were a lot more independent before it was corporatized. And then all of a sudden, within the 80s and 90s, the beginning of the corporate media structure, the anchor. That has always been anchors, but it became very polarizing. Yeah. The movie Anchorman 2 highlights this in a satirical way.
It's when cable news came into play.
Cable news came into play.
Because they had a 24-hour news cycle. They had to fill it.
And we need to, it's not so much like, you know, death and, you know, not to be morbid, but death and accidents, all these things happen. We can't escape it. It's inescapable, right? But they figured out a way, how can we sensationalize it?
How can we cover the war, guys? And then you get CNN doing those fake bits about we're out here, the bomb's going off, and they're faking it in the studio.
Well, what's at the root of that?
Money, greed.
Yeah, it's self-interest.
Yeah.
It's selfish ambition.
And they picked those people. They picked people from certain fraternities, certain schools, certain clubs, to basically be like, this person is going to say yes. When we tell them to jump, they're going to say how high.
Right.
because
their career means more to them than integrity. Absolutely.
Multi-million-dollar contract to be an anchor. Why would this person risk all of that money to tell the truth?
But you're telling yourself that you're doing something noble and good. You're telling yourself that you're actually helping people. Yeah. That's why those like these news companies are very they're an echo chamber, and they all go to the same parties, and they all live in the same world, and they don't talk to people outside of that world, and then they start believing their own crap because they don't really care about anything but their own selves. Like, oh, what do you do? Like, a bunch of people, you go to an industry party, right? Yeah. Like, and we've been to a bunch of, how much did we hate those parties?
I hate them every time.
Because it's fake, what's the word? Networking. Yeah. Right? It's fake networking because you don't really care. And I was like, all right, God, I care about people, but this stuff is pissing me off. Like, I don't want to fake care about
fake
you.
Care. I care about you based off of what I can gain from knowing you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. What can I... How can I use you and you use me, and then we find it both beneficial? No. I actually want to see what you're about. But when everybody's hiding, you know, and trying to project a lie, a persona that they don't even really know what they're doing, right?
That was one of the main things that I hated about living in LA for those few months that we were there. That's what that city is. full on. Like everyone there is
They're on.
Who can I know?
Projecting
who are
an
you?
image.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have your people call my people.
Yeah, like we should be friends because you might be somebody and I might be somebody. So let's be friends because then when we, it's that whole thing. It's like I'm nice to you only because I think I might need you. It's just weird.
Yeah, and that's where you get a true like narcissistic society. It becomes very selfish.
Yeah. I wanted to show this one last thing. You guys remember the last time we were here, we talked about how they were pushing that news story about the 10-year-old girl who had to go get an abortion to another state. And we were saying like something didn't add up with that story.
Right.
You know what I mean? They couldn't really find the girl. So they did find the girl who this happened to. But the reason why things weren't adding up is because it turns out that the guy that raped her was an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
And he was like 20-something years old. And the other part of it was that I think, and a lot of people are speculating to the fact that they saw this opportunity to tell the family to go to another state to get the abortion just to have the news story because there was nothing stopping them from doing it in Ohio.
Oh, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But if we can get them to go to another state and do it, then we can use this as a weapon.
And that was the whole Roe versus Wade push.
Right.
The lady they used, she didn't even want to do it, but they pushed her into it, and they instead of like saying, okay, we'll give you the money to get the abortion, they were giving her money to get all the legal stuff going and to do everything she needed to be able to put this in front of everybody.
Yeah. And I think that's what they did with this family of the 10-year-old girl, which is it's sick that first of all, how is a 10-year-old girl getting pregnant?
Yeah.
Like,
wow. And she is 10?
That's what they're saying.
She was 9.
So she had to be 9 when the rape happened, or you know what I mean? Like,
that's my daughter's age.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine her
But
mentality.
not only that, it's like, how are you even grown enough to get pregnant physically?
Some people are.
Some girls are going through puberty at that age. 9 years old.
It happened. Yeah. But here's the thing. What's the story in this guy? Is he a family friend? Is there?
He was living with
he was living
the
with
mom's
them.
boyfriend.
Yeah. And apparently he had raped her a few times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this story is
turning
out to be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Messed up. Because it seems like they were hiding it because the attorney general in Ohio didn't even know about it.
He didn't know. He didn't even know who the person. That was the other thing. The doctor that did the abortion never reported it.
Or it's turning out that she may have, but she called somebody first.
Yeah, and then in her, she didn't report it the normal way you would report it.
Right.
And in her filing, she put that the guy was 16 years old, which he's not.
22
she tried to make him sound younger.
Is that her daughter? Is that the lady daughter?
It's coming out that it is.
The abortionist daughter?
No. The mother.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we're saying the abortionist filed the papers fraudulently, apparently, and also listed the man as 16 to try to make it not seem as bad. You know what I mean? Because they wanted to cover up the fact that this was like an older guy, illegal alien, raping a 10-year-old girl. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Jeez.
Yeah, sad. It's a sad story, man. But it's like people are just using it as a political tool, which makes it even more sad. Yeah, but that's the problem.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, they've already put out in the universe that story, so people are never.
They're not going to see that part of it.
That part of it is
nope. You get Joe Biden up there saying 10-year-old girl had to go to another state. It's like that's all people know. That's all they see. Did you guys see that surveillance video inside the Uvalde school? Of the police literally standing there doing nothing while the shooting's going on? You haven't seen that?
You already showed it.
Did I show that?
Yeah, you showed that a few weeks ago.
No, I showed a screenshot.
Oh.
You didn't see the video?
No.
Of like them standing around and like dude getting hand sanitizer from the soap dispenser? Wow. Hold up, let's see. I'll just play this real quick. Surveillance video So the surveillance video shows a truck crash near Robb Elementary. We know about that. This is the truck crashing. Boom.
That's the dude.
That's the dude right there in the truck. So they're already alerted. He makes his way to the school.
Who's that behind him?
Yeah, who is that? Teacher called 911 to report the gunman. So he's shooting from the outside into the school. Bystander video captures the gunman entering the school. That's him entering school. The door is just open. Does he look like he's trained with that weapon, dude? You see how he was carrying that through the thing? Like, all right, so he's firing. Now he's still firing as the police enter. So they literally just all post up. They do nothing. They hear the shots as they're coming in. All of this time, they're not. Look, this guy checks his phone. "19 minutes later, 31 minutes later." They're all just standing in the hallway.
Is that the Border Patrol?
Yeah, that's the Border Patrol. "57 minutes later, that's where the dude gets hand sanitizer. Like, but you see all that story about they couldn't go in, they were told not to go in, they weren't in the building. Like, they were there.
Yeah.
They were there.
And it's the rules where you engage.
Yeah. That's why, like, as more and more of this evidence comes out, it's just seeming off.
But it's not being discussed on the national news circuit.
Nope. You just see it on Twitter. People posting it. Like, what's up with this? Stephanie said, "This pisses me off." Yeah, it does. It's sad, man. It's sad that all those kids died because they were afraid to act.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was no urgency. You know what I mean? Like, they're just hanging out in the hallway.
That's why that whole it went from a live shooter to a hostage situation.
Yeah.
It's just debunked right there.
Exactly. Because you heard gunshots through that whole video.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to these clips that Jake sent. So, Jake discovered Thomas Sowell this week. I'm sure Have you done any research on that?
Yeah, some of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't discover him, but
you
saw
saw a
some
lot
stuff I
more
didn't
stuff.
see, yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna bring it up. We're gonna talk about this stuff. Me and James talk about all the time. So this is gonna be interesting. But it's gonna go into like Black culture. It's gonna go into our ideas of what culture is and a lot of the things that we've just accepted. He pushed back against a lot of those things. You know that. Yeah. So let's just. I think this is in order. Should be in order.
Thomas Sowell is a big, famous conservative. He's at Stanford. He's at the Hoover Institute, I think. Anyway, so within this, I mean.
So who's this?
I don't know. This guy was on Joe Rogan, and I just saw a clip of it.
Yeah.
And he was telling Rogan about Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, and he kind of goes into culture a little bit.
Yeah.
Did Rogan know who he was already? Who Thomas Sowell was?
No.
Rogan didn't.
Yeah,
No.
he didn't. Yeah. This guy's, I remember this. I've seen this a while back, but this guy's trying to break down our ideas of political leaders / how culture is formed and where our influences come from the political side of it.
Right.
And Thomas Sowell happened to be
the topic. I got you.
And first, just to set all this up, we should set up briefly how does culture work, right? And the way culture works is that it, like genetic evolution, it works based on blind copying. So what ends up happening is that you are in awe of people, right? You look up to people. And so you blindly copy the things they do. And specifically, you start by blindly copying from the outside, and then you work in. So the first thing you do is you see someone and you're like, oh, that person's fucking amazing, that rock star, that sports star, whatever. And you start dressing like them, you start walking like them, and all of that sort of stuff. Now, in a hunter-gatherer context, that would be, somebody who is a hunter or is a gatherer, and you're like, man, she finds all the best guavas. How does she do that? And then Ung fucking eats them, right?
Fucking Ung again.
Yeah. And so, you would like hang out with her. You'd sort of like shimmy up to her. You'd be seeing what she'd be doing. And she's like, oh, okay. She looks for a very particular color of guava. She, squeezes them in a certain way. And over time, you learn what she's doing. And then ultimately, you even learn how she's thinking. But in a large-scale society like ours, I don't meet Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan just becomes this sort of distant person that I idolize. And so advertisers have figured out how to hijack these mechanisms. And they know if you put a burger next to Michael Jordan's face that I'm like, oh, I want to be like Michael Jordan, so I'm going to eat a Big Mac, right? And little children are dumb, and so they blindly copy that. Or, oh, I want to be like James Dean. He has a cigarette in his mouth.
Just children?
I want to blindly copy that. And we don't understand that the burger or the cigarette is not actually the key to being as successful or as cool as or as good at basketball as Michael Jordan or James Dean, right? We don't understand that that's where that comes from. So we have this tendency to blindly copy anything we can. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in a mass society, we never work our way in. We never learn the mastery, right? We just sort of remain at this sort of very superficial level. Thomas Sowell is a big, famous...
So the mastery of it is, that's actually like when you become an expert. And in order to do that, you have to go deep. Like with anything in society that actually works and is practical, you have to go deeper than the surface. And it's just like anything, like... I want to be a great soccer player. I can get the cleats. I can look like a great soccer player. I can have the right haircut. I can have the right Adidas shorts and the $300. But you still suck if you haven't done the work, right? And then I want to be a great soccer player. Let me play soccer more. You'll get better, but depending on who you're working with, is dependent on how much better you're going to get. If you play with masters, you're going to start to master your craft, right? So all these things matter.
I noticed that a lot in music as well. Like you see, especially female artists, they idolize Beyonce or whatever, or Rihanna or something, and they just mimic the mannerisms or the isms of what they think Beyonce is,
right,
without like actually learning the craft. You know
right,
what I mean?
Right.
Or like guitarists are known for this, where it's like there's a trope that like the worst guitarists have the most pedals because they, you know what I mean? Like they think that if I get the pedals, that'll make me as good as, Jimi Hendrix or whatever.
Right.
So it's along those same lines.
Yeah, so there's this mastery that we have to come into. But you can't be a master if you're not taught by a master, right? You can't become. It's
mentorship.
Yeah, and that's what Jesus is. It's like literally discipleship. Jesus says you're not going to be better than your teacher. You know what I mean? And that's the master. So you have to submit yourself to the master. And like everything he talks about and how we gain with him is that mentality and that perspective. Because you can't understand how somebody got what they got, but you'll try to perceive it, and that perception is superficial. It's not a deep perception until you actually humble yourself and submit yourself to that person. You know what I mean? You can't be a master of it. So now you're seeing in the society we're in, you have a lot of people who are learning how to master things, right? But wanting to hoard that knowledge and saying, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to help you because I care about you.
Yeah.
And how I help you because I care about you. But the thing is, you have people who right now we have the best technology, right? But how much the majority of people using that technology, think about even poor people, how educated are they on that technology? You know what I mean?
Very minimally.
Very minimal.
Yeah.
Just enough to, a lot of times, to get around it.
Yeah.
Sometimes not even that. So there's no mastery. Education is connected to the mastery of a thing. And that's what we're missing. So I can rule over you because I have the power, because I know the mastery of something but I'll never give that to you. I'll just give you the things that'll benefit me,
right,
that you think are benefiting you, but really I just have control over you. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of the leftist thinking and how they got like 90% of the black vote, right, over the last 60 years, right? So they've gotten this because of, they're saying, we're going to do this for you. We're going to do that for you. We're going to do this. And all these things that they do, that they come with a price. And the price is ignorance. You lose your understanding. You lose knowledge.
You lose independence.
You lose education.
Yeah.
You lose, and all those things connect to what you just said is independence.
Shout out to Donnie. He said, "My brothers." What's up, Donnie?
What up, Donnie?
So yeah, this is really, it's really key what he's saying, and you just see it. Like, what do? We mimic, right? We look, and that's very superficial. You know.
Yeah.
Culture, how culture works?
Oh, yeah, how culture works. Oh, okay, so now we're going to talk about black people. Okay,
Jesus
great.
Christ.
Jesus Christ. So Thomas Sowell...
Even hearing a white guy say that is like... It's
triggering.
It's scary. You know what I mean? It's like, uh-oh, you about to get in trouble, bro.
Thomas Sowell is a black guy, right? Okay. And Thomas Sowell has for years and years and years been trying to fight racism. But he's been trying to fight racism by having a conversation about culture. Right, and the fact that there are essentially two different sort of, we're speaking broadly here, right? But this is for the purposes of communication. We're going to tell a simple story to start off with, right? So, broadly speaking, he puts two different cultures of people with dark skin next to each other. And one culture is these people from the West Indies, and one culture is this group of people who grew up in the South with slavery and all that sort of stuff. Now, what one group, the West Indies group, does really well. So a lot of the successful black people like Colin Powell, are originally from that cultural heritage. The other group is the group that you find in ghettos and African-American communities and all that sort of stuff. They don't do well, right? They don't get good education. They, shoot each other. There are all these sorts of things. And the reason why Sowell has been telling this story is because he's been trying to say, when liberals look at the people in ghettos, they say, racism. That's why they're not succeeding. And Sowell is saying, no, it's not. Because if you look at this group from the West Indies, they also came from the experience of slavery. There was slavery in the West Indies. They are also black, so they also face racism, and yet they do well. So it has to be something else. And that other thing is the fact that these black people who are in the South, there's always been a big question, were black people robbed of their culture, or did they preserve their authentic African culture? And what Sowell is saying is that they were robbed of their culture, and so they picked up the culture of the people around them, and the people around them were rednecks. And if you look at the white redneck culture and the black redneck culture, they have a lot of the same values. They don't particularly respect education. They love Jesus. They use violence in their conflicts. And they, there's just, a lot of the same values and a lot of the same outcomes. And even Ebonics, which is, Black English, is actually all from the west of England. So it's actually this...
What?
It's from the west of England. So, for example, if you go to places like Cornwall, there used to be this amazing ads on British TV, right, for this Devon custard or whatever, and they would always say, Devon knows how they make it so creamy, and they all talk like this, right? And so it doesn't sound like Black English, but they do say things like, I be doing that, and we be doing this, and you be doing that, and they be doing that. And so there's that use of that copula be, right, where instead of saying I am, you are, he is, she is, they are, they just say I be, you be, we be, they be, which is the classic feature of Black English, African American vernacular English. Right. Now, the point is that...
Mind blower.
Mind blower. Now, let's imagine that, how do you think that Thomas Sowell has been received by liberal America? Not well.
Not well.
Not well. And so, for example, Sowell has a book called Black Rednecks, White Liberals. Okay? And his whole point is that, if you actually, and, again, like Sowell is, he researches the shit out of this stuff. He really does his work. Now, if you look at the experience of African Americans after slavery, they start to make real progress, right? And a large part of the reason why they make progress is because you start to get a lot of people from New England, either, black people from New England or white people from New England, who come down and sort of reshape the culture. They create these schools, and they're teaching those New England values, right? It's those Puritan values of hard work, tenacity, all of that sort of stuff. And so there's all this progress. And you have people like Booker T. Washington. And Booker T. Washington was an actual slave. And then after he got his freedom, he got to go work in a salt mine, which is literally the worst job ever. And in Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery, he tells this great story about seeing a schoolhouse, right? And that, he thought that going into a schoolhouse was about as close to heaven on earth as you could get.
Wow.
Like, this is a dude who wanted an education really, really badly. And that's a lot of what you find in the, early black experience in, the post-slavery period.
Culture, how...
Okay, I'm very interested because me and James talk about this all the time. So I want to hear because our ancestry Southern Black, your ancestry West Indian Black.
Yeah.
This is a perfect.
We do got some West.
We do.
West Indian though, which is weird. Like how it all lines.
Is
up.
your family from the South as well? Your lineage, South Carolina. Okay, so we have that full spectrum here. So from your perspective, that concept of the black rednecks, white liberals, what is your take on that?
I would say this, right? With what I've been taught, from the Caribbean to here. Well, when I came here, I was 14, so I really didn't. I was formed, but I didn't have everything that I have now.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? But I would say this. In the Caribbean, there is an emphasis on a certain amount of education, the way you function in society, your participation with the community. It seems to it's a lot different there than it is here.
Now, do you think a lot of that has to do with it stemming from British culture? Because British culture has that sense of the Queen's etiquette.
Some of it.
Because the traditionalism, and I noticed that with like your aunt and your dad and like the elders, that they still kind of like try to uphold that that class,
Some of it does. Some of it definitely does. It's more down there. It's the color thing exists, but it's more to do with class and your position in society. But I would say where a lot of people from the Caribbean really, really, really got their sense of morals from the Bible. So because it's heavily Christian, the Catholic Church and stuff like that sense of order from a religious perspective took hold.
So because he's making the comparison. You know, West Indian blacks came from slavery.
Yeah.
American blacks came
Sure.
from slavery. Two kind of similar systems.
Right.
But there is a huge difference.
There is a huge difference, but in the Caribbean, black families remained intact. There was no a purposeful attempt to destroy the family unit. We didn't have any Jim Crow. We didn't have any Klan night rides. We didn't have any oppressed. Blacks were free to go pretty much anywhere within certain areas. Maybe like in Trinidad, there's a place called Westmoreland, which is the old aristocrats that maybe not there, but we were free to roam about. But what was pushed was family and the rearing of your children.
Well,
You know,
what
building.
he's saying and what Thomas Sowell says that I'll interject is that it was more that the culture of Africa was allowed more.
It was allowed to be
in the
intact,
Caribbean then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see that in
Right.
Haiti. You see that in
Yeah.
Jamaica. You see that in.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Trinidad is such a unique
Right,
example
right.
because.
But
Go ahead.
let me say this, because the family thing, it's actually incorrect that the majority of families were actually kept intact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the South.
Yeah,
So-
I think people get that idea of
Yeah.
families being ripped apart by Alex Haley's roots,
Yeah.
which we know
Yeah,
now
partly true,
is
but not
it's
entirely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah,
it's
those
not
were
an
the
accurate
extreme-
representation of what
Right.
the whole
Right.
The majority.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
The majority of slavery families were kept intact.
Right.
And that carried over after slavery.
Right.
Up until the 1960s.
Jim Crow.
60s.
Jim Crow. Yeah.
So yeah, there was still that aspect. But the cultural stripping is really what happened in the South.
Yeah.
There was a big encouragement to stay together.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't just like so up here. So in Trinidad, I think you're right. African culture, it was more visible.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, most of the black people that were there still were in touch with
Right.
African culture, the herbs, and it's the tropics, so
Yeah.
it's very similar to Africa. So they, you know, certain things they still had.
And it became a blending. That's where you
Yeah.
get like. That's why when you look at all of the West Indian, even like New Orleans, we were just talking about Louisiana and how it's its own thing because it was ruled by the French during that time.
Yeah.
African culture was able to stay intact in that area. So you look at like the blending of Catholicism and the African roots, and you get a Mardi Gras in New Orleans. You
Yep.
get
Carnival
Carnival
in
in
Trinidad.
and in Haiti, and then like you get these blendings, and all that existed.
Santa Maria is.
Yeah, in Puerto Rico. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you see that happening.
But what I wanted to add to what he's saying here too is part of one thing that we weren't taught. I don't know if he's going to address this in any of these clips, but I'll just add it in real quick. Was this most of the white land owners in America? The people that they brought over to sort of oversee the slave would have been people that owed them debts in those parts of Cornwall or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So they would pay. It was sort of an indentured servitude that they're basically paying off their debt to
These
these
plantation
people, or it's just
owners.
an escape. Like, listen,
Yeah.
I want out of here, and I want to go to. It's
Yeah.
like this. Imagine now, Mars got opened up, and there's exploration in Mars, and all of a sudden, gold was involved, right? Well, you would have to get people to go over there because the people who found it or who have the money to mine it, they're not going to do it.
Right.
They're going to go find people. So the people who they're going to come to look for to go do it, if they needed physical human labor, would
Yeah.
be people that are downtrodden that needed the work. So they would put them in that situation.
There was a movie I just saw not too long ago that was kind of like that.
Right,
Where
so that-
they were gonna seed another planet.
Right.
But they had to like get people to volunteer, and it was all people that had nothing or
It had
people that-
nothing. So
yeah,
that's basic. So
yeah.
imagine England and
Yeah.
Europe, specifically England. In that time, there were parts of England that because even the imagery of England.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So-
So that's coming.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah.
But I just want to make this one
Yeah.
point that the people that would oversee a lot of black people were basically uneducated people themselves.
right.
So they would have the more influence on
Right.
them. And in the Caribbean, not so.
Not so.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, from our anecdotal experience about the family being intact. Like, we know for a fact that our family, like the Evans name, I was telling him how like they kept that they were hell bent on keeping that family tight, like incorporating the name, making people pay dues into like a system. You know what I mean? Like it was serious. You know,
it kind of fell apart in our generation.
Yeah, it fell apart. Yeah. But they were like, the elders were serious about that Evans tradition.
Like our grandfather's generation.
Yeah, I don't know if the Goldens had anything like that.
Not that I know of.
Yeah,
and my grandpa, we never knew his side of the family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something. So maybe that was going on, and he just was like, "Nah, I'm out."
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I know our family escaped up here from the north because of a situation down south with my great grandfather, and he had a lot of issues because he owned the plumbing business. He laid a lot of the plumbing in Dunn, North Carolina, and then had to flee up here. Sent the family up. He stayed, sent the family up, and I guess that's why they were so, hell bent on keeping everything intact. I know my grandfather used to live right at the property right next to my great uncle James, who I'm named after, in Glassboro, and they both had big plots of land. They used to have a pig farm there, and I just remember growing up in that environment, going to the family reunions, and everyone's there. Yeah. But that was all lost.
Yeah, and then look how quickly it gets lost because you have that second generation that doesn't really hold those same values because, like I see with my dad was more into
himself,
but it was because of what was being pushed. That mid 1960s to the 70s push in that free love hippie movement that our dad got involved with.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Right. Yeah.
And that influenced him greater than the family. Yeah. That was more because my dad would talk about it like he had pride in those things, but it was like, but the things he wanted to do superseded all that. Right. So that was like,
because he would even talk to us about it like he wanted us to care about it. Yeah. But we would always look at it like, you don't care about it.
Yeah, right. How you expect us to care about it? Right. And then our grandfather would come, like we would watch like shows like Martin, and he's like, and he would say things. We're laughing at it.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
he was alive then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He lived to 86.
Oh wow.
And he passed away in like 96, I think it was.
Yeah. No.
98.
90. Yeah. No. I think I was 15 when he passed away. Okay. So that would be 96. 96. Yeah, you're right.
So he was around and he would be like telling my dad, don't let these kids watch
why are they watching this foolishness?
This is slavery stuff. Like,
right.
Because of the jokes and the way and me and Jamie were talking about it like
at the time when he said it. I remember we were in my dad's apartment. Yeah. He said it to us. And we're watching it and we're looking at him like, this old man don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. But now understanding where he was coming from,
you get why he was saying
those things. What this was, perpetuating to the next generation.
Yeah, but we couldn't understand that at the time because culturally that was what we were being groomed in. Yeah. And he was frustrated by that.
Yeah. And being a pastor, Right. All right, let's keep going.
So post-slavery, Black people experience a rebounding.
They're starting to make some progress. There's ambition.
Progress.
Yeah. And I mean, if in terms of books to read, like, because a large part of what I'm trying to do in general is really let's move to the place of all people are created equal. Like, let's remove all these stupid distinctions, right, and really live that principle. And the problem is that in order to really live that principle, you need a new narrative that beats slavery. So, it's not, if you go and talk to racists, you can't just say racism is bad. Like, that doesn't destroy racism, right? What destroys racism is when you make sense of the things that they know, right? They see, people who are violent in the ghettos, or they see crime, or they see a lack of education, or they see that Africa is poor. And you're able to tell a better story that makes sense of the things that they know, but also comes out with the conclusion, oh, we actually all have the same potential. Right.
But if you have this issue with people imitating their atmosphere and imitating their environment and this Southern style talk with the Southern redneck influence on the African American slaves.
This is that high speed playback, right? That's why they sound weird. Okay.
former slaves. How do you stop that, and how do you turn that around?
Well, in general, for humanity, I mean, this is sort of a big problem for humanity in general, is that there's not a culture alive today that is well suited to the world that we're living in. And that's because, culture is adapted to environment in the same way as any evolutionary thing, right? So, for example, if you look at, let's talk about these hunter-gatherers, right? The Yanomamo or something like that. So there's a great story in The Lost City of Z where, Percy Fawcett, who was an explorer, comes across, all these tribes in the
Good
Amazon.
movie, by the
And
way.
one of the examples that the author gives in there is David Gran. He talks about how there's this group of tribesmen in the Amazon, and what they'll do is there's this special leaf, and they go and they squeeze this leaf, right? They crush it up, and this milky substance runs into the water. And then all of a sudden, the fish float up to the surface upside down, right? They've been anesthetized by this whatever substance in the leaf. And this little boy goes into the river, and he plucks out all the fattest fish, and then as the milky cloud dissipates, the other fish swim away, right? Impressive as fuck. Like, how the fuck do these tribesmen who don't have science, don't have any of these things, figure this thing out? And it's cultural evolution. That's what happens. That's the nature of evolution. That's the nature of markets, because markets are an evolutionary process. Intelligent answers and intelligent solutions can emerge from just sort of competing forces. And so all of these cultures are well adapted to a particular environment.
So post-slavery.
So what he's saying is that, like, when you get put in different environments, you have to now learn how to thrive in that environment. Right. And I think that's the human experience.
But we talk about that all the time. That's why so many inventions were made by slaves or by black people, because they were put in positions where it's like, I got to figure out an easier way to do some stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Are we gonna make
It's out of necessity.
Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say this. I was going to say part of the issue and what he's saying there about time and evolution with the tribesmen is this: like, all of those things are true. Every society have developed within their ecosystem and their environment how to survive that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the problem is this: is we have allowed our leaders and our educators to deem those things less than civilized.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have allowed is this: instead of us saying, "Wait a minute, these people figured this thing out. This is awesome," but what we have done is we've taken their idea of what intellectualism is, or what a function of something is, and we've said we've abandoned that. Like I told you guys, when I grew up in the Caribbean, the part of Trinidad I'm from is a rural village. Jimmy, you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There ain't a CVS around.
Nope.
There's no convenience stores around. There's nothing. But I watched people for 14 years of my life exist without a Tylenol, exist
Having
without a Band-Aid,
babies.
having babies, existed all of this. Now, in my mind, when the TV was introduced, everything that was presented to me seemed infinitely more amazing than what was happening there. Now, 41 years old, I realized that all those people had adapted to that culture. And that's not millions of years. That's only a couple hundred years, because when was Trinidad discovered,
Exactly.
right? But they took things from their ancestors and they passed it on. I remember when you had a headache, you had certain things. My sister would tell you this too. There's a certain bush you went and you drink, and you're getting it directly from the source.
Right.
What we started to believe was when they said, this is Bushman, this is witchcraft, this is this. Superstition. Then we abandoned it.
The idea, because she always tells the story about when she got stung by the scorpion in her shoe, and how, like, the remedy was to cook the scorpion and make her eat it, right? And she was...
And everybody would be like, that's gross.
That's gross. Why would you do that? It's so stupid. Superstitious. Was like, but you don't understand how anti-venom works.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And the fact that, like, actually ingesting some of that might counterbalance the poison, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
so it
remember
doesn't
that.
have as bad of an effect, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, like, a lot of people discredit a lot of those bush medicines in that way, where they don't understand that most of the medicines that we take, Tylenol, for example, comes from those bush medicines. They just figured out a way to concentrate it and extract it into a pill. But most of these scientists go to these tribal places and observe and say, all right, what are they doing? How are they...
Where are they getting this from?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Most of the drugs, cocaine, all that stuff comes from these cultures.
Yeah. So that's what you see. You see, whenever there's a breakdown in, like, the meanings, the whys, that's when you get the superstitions that come in. So that's the problem. It's the superstitions always happen because of surface understandings.
Right.
You don't have deep understandings about stuff. And that's why you have to go to the masters of civilizations, right? And I think that's what they're talking about. But the other end of that is that we get caught up in the awe of why, right? Or just the awe of the thing, right? And then we're just awestruck, and then we just want to be like, we want to have that same awe.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to our selfish nature.
Yeah.
Let me read Donnie's comments real quick, because he's going back to the black shows, Martin and everything. He said, that moment that all the black shows had real meaningful and important outside of being silly, they took it off the air. We are not good unless we are the clowns. And you see that on social media now. Those that have the most play in the algorithms are those that dress up as women and clowning, fighting, etc. Yeah, so he's talking about the fact that the meaningful black shows don't get any legs.
Sure.
Yeah. So culture has to be cultivated by those who truly have understanding and knowledge and wisdom.
But do you think, I always ask this question, do you think that the algorithm creates the culture, or does the algorithm follow the culture? So even like with the shows, like what Donnie's saying, like, do these shows not last because they don't want these positive,
It's a bit of both.
Or is it that people are more likely to watch the train wreck?
Mm-hmm.
So then that gets rated,
happens
so
in
then
white
that
shows
gets
too.
pushed. Because it happens with white. It's not just black shows. It happens with white shows too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the quick fix on both ends. Like, why are we're gonna put out something? Why do we make an algorithm in that way? Because we want to see what works. Right.
We were just talking about that with cable news. Like,
Right.
why has cable news become what it is? Because it needed
Right.
to make money in a way
Right.
where they have to feature certain stories. What's going to keep people watching?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why they're so interested in young people, because when you're younger, including us at that age, we're not saying we're holier than thou to the audience out there. We're saying this: the reason they go after the young children is because children are unruly and undisciplined.
Right.
We were too.
Yep.
We found all of that stuff entertaining. But what happens is that for the people who are truly undisciplined, they never come out of that.
Right.
So now they're 50 and they're 60 and they're still doing the same things.
Right.
And they're passing it on. See, we can sit back and be like, all right, this is foolish. But for a lot of people, they don't ever break out of it. So part of it is that though we looked at that as children and laughed and giggled and it was silly and funny, now we're sitting down and understanding and talking, and we're saying, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, this kind of shaped a certain thing. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? Me coming here, like I said, I'm a product of slavery, but I'm not African American. I'm from the Caribbean.
Right.
All right? So when I was introduced to Martin's Shanae character, all right, what does that represent for me? Number one, it's Martin being ridiculous, and he's playing this loud ghetto girl. But any girl that had the name that resembled that would instantly, that would be what I would picture.
Right.
So if your name wasn't a Judeo-Christian style name, and your name was any of those hyphenated
Shanrika.
you are because that he is caricaturizing that thing.
Right.
And him being dark skinned and doing that, any girl that you saw with that kind of hair was that. So he's playing into a caricature too. And though we're laughing at it, he's also building up those stereotypes too. He's participating. He's adding another brick to those stereotypes too. And we can't, like it's like this. Another example I'm talking about to finish up my point is this. If we're going to sit here and say Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, they're ridiculous, and we're not going to talk about Teddy Riley and Rum Shaker or any other rappers that talk about this stuff,
Right.
and we're like, well, they were better lyrically. They may have more talent in terms of that, or the beat may be different, but it's the same content.
Right.
Just a female singing. So we can't be like, I like this bricklayer, not that one.
Right.
Because they still added to the fabric of the decay of culture. And that's what happens. That's what these shows do. You know?
But do you think that the shows were propped up by entities that want to see the destruction of the culture? Or do you think that we as flawed humans gravitate more towards those shows?
I think it's a bit of both. I think we naturally, like, it's like this, right? You go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right? Now you walk around. There are certain, like, you know how they say everything on the outside is good for you, everything on the inside is bad for you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, if you become a creature of habit, if to you
walk past those greens and you go right
because
to
here's how it happens, right? If to you getting home and cooking a quick meal so you can watch hours of TV or the sports game, so you need to get a meal under 15 minutes. So this canned beans is better than the beans that you had to soak, and I need boxed rice, and I need to eliminate all of this stuff so I can make my life, I can get to this TV show.
Right.
You're adding to heart disease. You're adding to bad health. So that's your fault.
Right.
So it's like if you
but
sit
the company
down,
is also involved too,
They're
because
involved
they're
too.
supplying it. They're supplying.
But if it didn't sell,
right? If it didn't sell, they wouldn't do it because then it wouldn't be profitable.
Yeah,
and
if
which
we
is
didn't
what
do
I
that.
always. That's my argument to people that complain about the depiction of black women on TV, and I'm like, yeah, but y'all love and hip hop and housewives, and y'all watch it 24/7 and can't get enough of it. So by you watching it, you're supporting it, therefore continuing the perpetuation of it. Because if no one was watching it, that show would be canceled.
Sure.
ASAP.
We've
Because
seen
it's
that
all
with
about
sports
them
now.
being able to get ad dollars from the commercials.
Oh yeah. But we see with sports. Sports has been under decline.
Yeah.
You know, football.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are watching that anymore.
Yeah.
If you, that's why it starts with the family.
And my dad used to do the same thing too to me. Shut that off.
Yeah. But not just shut it off, but why?
Yeah.
You know,
That's part of it.
Why do we
The
need?
explanation.
Why can't I watch this? What's the issue?
That's true.
Why can't I eat this thing? Or why shouldn't I eat this thing all the time? Right? All these things, like, we got to know why.
Yeah. And I think we're all taking a different approach. Right? You explain this to your kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the root of it is education.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny because, like, everything's about truth, because you want to get to the truth of the thing. Right, but you got to go deeper to get to the truth of the matter, to get to the root of the thing, right? Because the truth is really the root.
Right.
And the thing is, if you don't get to the root, then you got a lot of problems in your life, but you also got a lot of vices in your life, right?
Yeah.
But why do you got those vices in
That's
your
true.
life? And then people will just feed off of the vices, and they're corrupt, and they're corrupting you because corruption is your body's unhealthy, right?
Right.
And so you're feeding off of the things that they're giving you, but they don't have your intention. They'll tell you that, but really it's about themselves, right? So you have this whole thing where everybody is out for themselves, and that's what you're seeing in America.
Yeah.
You're seeing the breakdown, and when that happens, everybody's corrupt, and everybody is for themselves, but then everybody's looking for something to help themselves.
Yeah.
So there's no real community.
Right.
There's
It's
no
all fake.
community.
Yeah.
It's all fake, and it's all corrupt. So you become corrupt.
Yep.
Your body, your house becomes corrupt. Your household becomes corrupt,
Yeah.
And it just perpetuates.
So Stephanie writes, racism is not all black and white, though. It spans a huge degree, something that we know very well, especially you, James, growing up as the half black, half Indian. We can speak on that because a lot of people don't understand that in these other cultures there is racism amongst other groups. She said, "Ask me." Hold on, let me just finish reading her comment. Ask me about what happens in Hawaii every Pearl Harbor anniversary. I am Filipino/Cajun, so those anniversaries were scary for me. They see slanted eyes. You're automatically grouped Japanese and could be targeted.
Yeah. But I'll say, like, it's not about, like, if you say racism, you're focused on the wrong thing. Like, it's actually, you're not going to the root. The root is culture. The root, that's what Thomas Sowell talks about. The root is culture.
Right.
Culture is the problem. And culture can be cultivated, right? And the thing with what God does is he teaches you to deny yourself and in turn look to give to others. Right off the bat, love God with all your heart. That means you can't be focused on yourself. Love him with all your heart and then love others.
Right.
Love your neighbors. So automatically it takes it off of you, puts it on him and everybody else.
Right.
Right? That's like the bottom line of it. That's the root, right? Love. Love is the root, rooted and grounded in the love of Christ that passes all knowledge. So that's like the root of what God does culturally with us. And when we grasp that, see, if we got that in our head, I gotta love people, but at the same time, we got all these issues in our life. We have to give that all up to God, right? And as I'm dealing with this, right? And I got this thing going on here. But when we give it up, we let it go. We're not focusing on ourselves. Now we see how that's being cut back in our life. Because every time we have an issue, we're going to get confronted with it, right? But how many people want to look at what the issue they have? They don't want to look at it. They're blind by it, right? Yeah. People don't want to see it. But you get confronted with things that are put right in your face as a test. Are you going to pass that test? Or are you going to just go around that mountain again? You know what I mean? Are you going to go around that cycle again until you pass it? And that's culture. Because what does it mean to cultivate? It means to cut back, to prune. You know what I mean? So what? So you can produce more fruit. Yeah. You got to cut back the branches, right? If the branches aren't producing fruit or not enough fruit, right? Or bad fruit, you cut back the branches. So cultivation is about the things that I was doing, maybe I don't need to be doing them. Maybe I need to stop and give it to God. Like, that's what it means to, when I say give it to God, I mean, like, this ain't working for me. Right. Because the definition of insanity is continue doing the same thing that ain't working for you, right? But you keep doing it. So, and a lot of times we don't see it. Perspective, right? Perspective is key. So somebody comes along and shows you something, and then you're like, oh, I never saw that. That makes sense. But it's not the root of the problem, right? It's not getting to the root. So now they just entrapped you. Because now when you go with that idea, because they've been mastering a thing, but not for their own gain. You know what I'm saying? Not for your good, but for their own gain, right? And when they have something that they can bring to you for their own gain, and you take it, you've just been duped by a superficial and superstitious thing. Because superstition is surface, right? It's not root. Root truth has been, it's gone through the process of testing. Right. With God, we go through things over and over again. Why do I keep going through this? Why do I keep going through this? Because he's trying to show you something, right? He's trying to show you something. It says that his grace is sufficient for you, meaning that, yeah, you're going to have to go through this, but I got you, right? That's what God does as a father. See, it's a different household. I got you. But see, I want the quick fix. But then he never can really have me. See, I can't give myself over to God to then be able for him to cut me back, to cultivate me. I keep trying to find my own way of how to fix something. Right. And every place I go to is only looking out for themselves, right? So I keep going for these things that are superficial and superstitious. Yeah. So then I keep on getting caught up in corruption in my body. You know what I mean? In my household. Yeah. You know.
Two points I want to make. One is this. This is why liberals can come in and now they can get someone that looks like you and says the thing they say, because you're going to have more trust. Yep. You've already developed a thing where you want to see someone like you win because you think it's a game. So they can come in and they're speaking something and they look like you, so you believe them. You naturally, you put your guard down. Well, he wouldn't lie to me, right? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, that's some of the videos we're gonna go into.
Right.
Because
that's Margaret Sanger.
So with
that's
that,
Obama.
So we have to stop now within ourselves and be like, all right, it doesn't. What are these people trying to sell me? Whether they're black, white, male, female, whatever it is,
doesn't matter what
they're trying to sell me.
Yeah.
Right.
Then the other point I wanted to make was as far as like our parents, they had the right idea in terms of don't watch that, but they never finished by saying here's why. Right. Here's why. So it's what happens is this, because of our natural, as when we're teenagers and we're young kids, there's a naturalness, a rebellion within all of us. No child is born perfect, right? Our kids are going to do it. Yep. Right? But we have to see that with them and still love them enough to just don't tell them, don't do that because I said so.
Right.
That's a very famous thing with I said so.
Yeah.
Why? Because I said so.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good enough.
Yeah,
we
it
have
has
to
to
give
be.
them a reason.
Deeper than that.
Yeah.
Because naturally, as a human, you want to know why.
Yeah, and you may not do it in front of them, but as soon as they go,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you ask why, they backhand you.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Sometimes
but
they
the
don't know why.
explanation, the explanation.
Sometimes they don't know why.
Had your grandfather? Let me ask you this, right? Like, I mean, I know you guys because of the way your dad was, but with your grandfather, did you guys spend a lot of time talking to him?
Never did. He think about it. He died when I was 15. So, and we didn't. He moved back down to North Carolina when we were young. Like,
right.
So we really didn't spend a lot of time. When we were really, really little, we used to stay with him a lot. You know?
But this is why I think one of the mistakes, and this is part of the whole culture thing we're talking about, is this. Part of the problem with the family, the modern family, and this is transcends black, this is white, everybody, is we are circumstantially involved with kids. Really how it should be, all of us, whether it's uncles, aunts, grandparents, should all be involved in the rearing, cultivating of children.
Right.
It can't just be once in a while. It has to be all the time. And because we're not, because think about it, if Elise hears you saying that, him saying that, me saying that, him saying that, there's still rebellion, but
yeah, it definitely will sink in more.
It's sink in more.
Yeah.
It's not because it'll just be dad's
out of touch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Dad wants to control me.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's what real community.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he comes and he grabs and he says, Elise, listen, look. Like say you down there and Elise wants to do something. He comes, uncle, your brother, and he grabs and says, let me talk to you for a minute.
Yeah.
Listen, your dad's trying. If his attitude, I'm not saying this is what you would do. I'm just saying if your attitude is like, that ain't like me.
Yeah.
And we walk away.
Right.
What we just did is leave a family member, a brother, to struggle with that. That's a struggle that we're seeing. But there's a way to grab that kid and cultivate with them. They're like, listen, your dad loves you. You can't do this right now.
Right.
So
here's why.
This is why he's saying
this is why.
Yeah.
And we don't do that. I don't know why. I mean, I know because people are embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to feel offended or something like that.
Because we've lost that sense of communal family. Like we've lost it. We've lost it.
Is it real quick, John? Is it frozen or is it?
It's frozen there.
Okay.
Yeah, and you could do the same damage in that situation where if he comes in, just do it because your dad said so.
Sure.
There's damage there.
Yeah.
Now she's left to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
somewhere else.
But there's value in that too. Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I'm telling you, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
But just do it right now. You'll find out. You know.
Yeah.
And eventually, because sometimes you're not ready to hear
in that moment.
Hear it. Yeah, sometimes you gotta just go through the process of just doing what we tell you. You know, or because that's what God does that with us.
Donnie said the reason why they say that because either they are doing it themselves or they don't know the reason why not. Yeah, that's another one we hear all the time. Do as I say, not as I do. You know what I mean? But yeah. Let's see if we can continue playing these clips because we got a lot to go through. I'm gonna play this one. See if you can pull it up, John.
Problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold. These people are creating a terrible problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold a job. They flout the law constantly and neglect their children. They drink too much, and their moral standards would shame an alley cat. For some reason or other, they absolutely refuse to accommodate themselves to any kind of decent, civilized life. This was said in 1956 in Indianapolis. Not about blacks or other minorities, but about poor whites from the South. Nor was Indianapolis unique in this respect. A 1951 survey in Detroit found that white Southerners living there were considered undesirable by 21% of those surveyed, compared to 13% who ranked blacks the same way. In the late 1940s, a Chicago employer said frankly, "I told the guard at the plant gate to tell the hillbillies that there were no openings." When poor whites from the South moved into northern cities to work in war plants during the Second World War, occasionally a white Southerner would find that a flat or a furnished room had just been rented when the landlord heard his Southern accent. These people are creating a terrible problem in our cities. They can't...
Okay, that's the clip right there.
Yeah, so it sounds like it would be black people they're talking about, but they're talking about
whites Southern
from the
whites.
South. Right.
I mean, but you see that even now to this day. Like when you look at the coastal city elite mentality, when they think of Southerners or they think of like Middle America, they call it flyover country.
I was told don't go to the South.
Yeah. These people are rednecks. These people are uneducated. They're racist. You know, we know a bunch of people to this day that think that way. Like going to the South, it's racist.
Yeah. And I will say, like, you go to certain areas in the South, you're gonna see the reason why. Like there's people. We stopped in one town on the way home to get gas, and I think it was in South Carolina. And man, I was like, yeah, time to go. And it was, it was blacks and whites, but just you could see the mentality.
Yeah. Where did you stop where you said you couldn't even understand what they were saying? Like it was almost like they were speaking another language. Was that in South Carolina?
South Carolina.
Yeah.
To the point I tell Jamie, like certain times, like, you have people with thick accents, or it's almost you got to adjust for a second. You don't understand them for a second. You got to adjust it, and then it's like, okay.
Say that again?
When I drove across country, we stopped, I think it was in Missouri.
Yeah.
We were at a gas station, and the guy came up to me. He was like, and me and Amber looked at each other like, what are you saying?
Was that English? Yeah. Yeah.
But this is where, so a lot of that comes from
culture.
It's culture, right?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how, like, again, like he was saying, we be, you be, they be, like, this is what is called black culture, right? Ebonics, but
it's not.
It didn't start with them.
No.
It didn't start with black culture, with us, right? It started in England.
Yeah.
Right. It started
poor Brits.
Right. And
then
this
poor
is what,
Southerners.
Right. So this is what they're talking about on here.
And they did that intentionally too, because if you ever go, if someone likes history, and you go, especially antebellum South, and you start visiting these plantations or whatever it is, you could see, because I would ask questions. We went to Magnolia, one of the biggest plantations in South Carolina. Liz and them went there too.
Yeah.
And just asking, because I'm naturally curious about this stuff. And there's essentially the plantation house, which is like a palace, really.
Yeah.
And then the family members live there, but in and around that, in the back, usually it's like the slave quarters. But right there with them were the white overseers / handlers, and they would have been uneducated, poor whites paying off their debt or moving their way down to the South looking for work, because they wouldn't have gotten those jobs in the cities, et cetera, et cetera. Because what would happen in the cities at those times was this: people had bigger families.
Yeah.
So small cities and stuff like that, like it was a form of nepotism within those factories and those, it's family owned. So if you came over here as a foreigner, you're not going to get a job with them. So you had no choice but to make your way down south, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And that's where one of the tour guys, I was like, where did they stay? He was like, they stayed right here.
Yeah.
Because even though they were white, they weren't
part of the plantation.
And they weren't part of the lineage, because you got to remember that whole blue blood, I don't know the terminology. I think it is blue blood, but it's part of that. You're not authentically or racially, not racially, ethnically part of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not in the group. You're just here to work. And
I think another misconception, people don't understand that most people in the South did not own slaves. It was a small percentage of people. And so most of those people were workers,
Yeah.
And they were poor. Yeah. What was that YouTuber? Who was his name? I forget. That went to the most racist town in America. It was in the South. Like he went there.
What are you talking about? I don't remember his name.
I forget his name. He's like this YouTuber that's blown up. He's a younger guy. You might know who he is too. Man, what is his name? It's like Jade, something like that. But he's a YouTuber. He's on TikTok. He's huge. He's got millions of followers. And he was like, you know what? I heard this is the most racist town in America. I'm going to go there and find the racism. You know what I mean? And he went there and like, he was like astonished at like how nice people were. You know what I mean? because I think like Hassan Piker and a bunch of news articles had written this as the most racist town in America. You know, because like the Grand Wizard of the KKK lived there or something.
Yeah.
But it's interesting if you guys get a chance, check that out and watch like how he goes through the town, and he literally goes through like asking people like, "Yo, where's the KKK?" Like,
I don't even know how to say his name.
you know what I'm talking about?
I just found him.
Oh, okay.
It's like Diane.
Jediah, right?
Dion.
Jedion, yeah, Gideon or something like that.
Gideon,
Yeah, yeah. But look him up on YouTube. He does a whole video about, and that one thing,
Jidion.
yeah, and it went completely viral, like him going there and just the whole experience of him.
5.4 million views.
And some of the people he interviewed were honest.
Yeah. There was honest people. Then they showed him where the dude lives. He went to the dude's house and talked to him, like had a conversation with him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it was basically like, I think the consensus was like, okay, the dude he believes that the white race needs to be pure, and like, you know, like it is what it is. Like we're not going to be friends, but you know, he doesn't want to kill me. You know what I mean? Like,
and even for him, that culture, that what he's saying,
Yeah.
is a derivative of white elitism from the blue blood era, who
Right.
believed the same thing. The French, and they believe that, keeping their, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's just uneducated. He just grabbed a hold of that. You know
absolutely.
What I mean?
It's interesting when you see it though unfold. You know what I mean? Because we're always given this, you know, this idea of what it is, you know, from movies and the stuff that we've seen.
Because the people who are telling you that want to keep you trapped too.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. All right, so this next video is titled "The Origin of Redneck Culture."
I think we played this on
Involved here than a mere parallel between blacks and southern whites.
probably did.
What is involved is a common subculture that goes back for centuries, which has encompassed everything from ways of talking to attitudes toward education, violence, and sex, and which originated not in the South, but in those parts of the British Isles from which white Southerners came. That culture long ago died out where it originated in Britain, while surviving in the American South. Then it largely died out among both white and black Southerners, while still surviving today in the poorest and worst of the urban black ghettos. It is not uncommon for a culture to survive longer where it is transplanted and to retain characteristics lost in its place of origin. The French spoken in Quebec and the Spanish spoken in Mexico contain words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain. Regional German dialects persisted among Germans living in the United States after those dialects had begun to die out in Germany itself. A scholar specializing in the history of the South has likewise noted among white Southerners archaic word forms, while another scholar has pointed out the continued use in that region of terms that were familiar at the time of the first Queen Elizabeth. The card game whist is today played almost exclusively by blacks, especially low-income blacks, though in the 18th century it was played by the British upper classes and has since then evolved into bridge. The history of the evolution of this game is indicative of a much broader pattern of cultural evolution in much more weighty things. More is involved here than a mere parallel between black.
What about spades?
I thought about that.
That's the game of the blacks now. Spades, baby.
Yeah.
No, but that's interesting, man.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. Keep it moving, baby.
Perhaps understandable that the great overwhelming moral curse of slavery has presented a tempting causal explanation of the peculiar subculture of Southern whites, as well as that of blacks. Yet this same subculture had existed among Southern whites and their ancestors in those parts of the British Isles from which they came, long before they had ever seen a black slave. The nature of this subculture, among people who were called rednecks and crackers in Britain before they ever saw America, needs to be explored before turning to the question of its current status among ghetto blacks and how developments in the larger society have affected its evolution. Emigration from Britain, like other migrations around the world, was not random in either its origins or its destinations. Most of the Britons who migrated to colonial Massachusetts, for example, came from within a 60-mile radius of the town of Haverhill in East Anglia.
All right,
the
stop
Virginia
that right there.
aristocracy came from...
So, Massachusetts, right? You think of the Puritans. They were like the Pilgrims, right?
Mm-hmm.
That whole area.
Plymouth Rock.
Yeah. You think about like...
Real quick, side note, I just want to show... Someone posted a picture of Plymouth Rock the other day on Twitter. It was like Shouldn't this be underwater by now? Because it's like a small little rock on the coast.
Yeah.
That's what I said to Jake when not it being underwater, but I put Jake when we went into Plymouth Rock. I was like,
I thought it would be bigger. I thought it would be
like
bigger.
this.
It's a tiny little rock.
Yeah, it's not big. But what they brought there was a culture, right? And something that had been cultivated. Like these people they helped in the 1611 King James Bible.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there was an intellectual prowess. They had like their own constitution when they came, right?
Right.
They were educated people. And this was like, just to know like where it was in the England area, it was like northeast of London, right? And not too far northeast of London. So it wasn't too far from that area. But then you have, they'll go into it, but you have the people who were called the rednecks, and they were like the Scots and the Irish.
Where does that term come from, rednecks?
I don't know. Maybe because they're out in the sun all day.
I was assuming.
So they get rednecks.
I don't know.
I learned from this that redneck is not 60s blaxploitation. Get out of here, you crackhead.
Crackhead.
That's where I thought it came from.
Right.
So they were from the west of England.
Okay.
Right? And they were connected more to like, again, Scots. And Irish. Irish. So they were, and it was very unruly there.
The Highland.
Yeah.
So,
which is, I mean, if anybody has watched Braveheart, there's a bit of explanation, and if you can take it and amplify it to like as times would have progressed, there was a lot of. See, the thing is, part of it is for us, right? When we think of history or whatever, we don't really study other geographical areas to understand patterns. That these places were in perpetual war all the time. Yep. You know what I'm saying? They weren't up in the mountains drinking.
And they were
goat
tribal.
milk. No, yeah, they were. They were fighting each other. Yeah. So what he's saying here is that literally within that culture there was subsects of other cultures going on.
Yeah.
And some people were very religious, some people were chaotic, some people were farmers, some people were hunter-gatherers, and it was all part of that. Now, when we hear of English culture, we're thinking Sparta
Aristocrats.
But it wasn't like that. This is all to do with the cartoons and the movies, because everything we saw that was British derived, kind of like, like if someone explained, like if you go to Japan or Korea, whatever, and you say American black guy, yo, what's up? They're gonna think they're gonna think that, you know what I mean?
Right. LeBron James.
And you'll see them being awkward too. Hey, my man, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like they'll do it too, you know what I mean? Because it's
Did you ever see those videos on YouTube of Japanese people trying to
I've seen it.
speak English?
Yeah. I've seen it. And it's very urban-esque. So
it's hilarious. Like trying to, like, these are Japanese people that don't speak English trying to imitate what English sounds like.
Yeah. And they're trying.
So again, what is that? That they're mirroring
this thing.
Right.
And here's the thing. You could be insulted, but they're not. They're actually trying to honor you.
They're trying to honor you. It's so hilarious.
But they don't understand. What you do?
Will Smith.
Yeah, but it's like a kid mimicking his dad.
Sure. Yeah.
He don't, like, a kid wants to go out. Like my kids, they sometimes they would want to come here and act like they're playing on the drums, but they don't know how to do it. They just want to look like they're doing it. You know? And
Dude, I saw a video on Twitter of young kids. I forget what city it was, man. Might have been Chicago. But like the little boy was like going up to the cops, like, you punk ass bitch.
Oh yeah.
He's mimicking what he sees. Yeah, you see the kid, like he tries to punch the guy. He's like, look at your shoes you got on. You over here with your church shoes on. You know what I mean? Like he's just mimicking what he sees. Kids don't just come out being like that.
And that's the thing, right? So that happens across all cultural lines because, like he's saying, kids are naturally going to, because I've seen it in the church.
Yeah.
When they give and the Spirit of God is moving. There's a 5-year-old that wants to talk.
Right.
The Lord, I see, decree and declare. And it's like, clearly it's rehearsed. You know what I mean?
Right. He knows how to mimic what the pastor does.
He's just doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And some of my family would be like, God is moving.
Right.
And the thing is, like, that's not a bad thing. It's just it can't stay there.
Yeah.
It's, you got to embody it. It can be bad if you're mimicking the wrong thing.
But if the kid is coerced,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Then you gotta, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
there's
like,
you can't say God is moving there. It's like,
Right.
no, he's just
told him how to do
imitating.
that.
Right.
Yeah, that's different. But what I'm saying is that in a house where there's security and safety, mimicking is not a bad thing in the right way, because eventually it's going to lead to, like, you see your kids doing what they want to do, what you do. It's cute because they're coming in, they have a passion for it, but they might not understand it whatsoever. But eventually, if they continue on that path of honoring you, like you said, they're honoring. Like eventually they'll get there because they'll start to embody it. You know, and that's key. But then you can embody the wrong things. You know, you can act like those kids are acting, yelling at the cops, but eventually they grow up 5 years later, now they're embodying that stuff. And it's a part of them. They're not just acting, that's who they are.
And it goes from them saying something to throwing something.
Right.
And
now those cops are going to treat them.
Yeah,
because those cops in that video, they're just kind of dismissing them, like, get out of here. You know what I mean?
But you look at, now you see, why do we need parents? Because parents cultivate, right?
But don't you think, like, so here, I mean, I know this is uniquely American culture, but where did we get all of our, it really came from England. It really came from all, like even including the West Indies and Africa too, came from there. You know what I'm saying? So we have no idea. So when we hear these things like what he's saying about within England itself, Great Britain, all of this happening, we don't know this.
Yeah, we don't.
You know what I mean? We have no clue.
No idea.
You know what I mean?
It's never been taught to us.
And this is why we need to know roots. Right? It's funny.
Real roots.
You watch Roots.
Right.
But then you get a fake version, and then that you know how many people watched Roots and thought that was some real stuff?
My name is Kunta. You're Toby.
Right. But we have to find the truth. Right? We have to go back. That's why research matters. You know, that's why somebody like Thomas Sowell matters. And he can't be looked over because he did the research. He went and sought these things out. He wanted to find out the reasons why. Why? Because he cares about his people. He cares about
he
culture.
wants things to change.
He cares about America. He cares about black people.
And there's a reason why there's not a spotlight on him.
Right.
Like why shouldn't you look at him?
Right. I mean, I think now he's like 90 something.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily we have books, but
he doesn't. He hasn't done a lot of interviews. He doesn't really like the media because the way they treated him.
He actually has a little spat with him and Joe Biden in his younger years.
Yeah, he does. He does. But I find it interesting to see, especially like Black YouTube. Getting introduced to him. I see so many Black YouTubers doing reactions to Thomas Sowell interviews. You know
what they're
I mean?
reacting to, part of it too is this. I think a lot of younger people in general, right, but focusing on young black men specifically, they went, because of the manosphere, I think it led them down a channel to, well, how did we get here? Right? So certain people, Kevin Samuel being one of them, and others have sort of mentioned what happened. And they give tidbits of what happened, but they don't go into detail. So as these guys start doing this, I'm going to find out how deep this goes, right? They stumble across that. And then, because again, YouTube has an algorithm too. So as you're looking up this stuff, you may run into it. You know?
I think also it's a little different, but it's kind of the same. Fascism and communism are like two sides of the same coin. And you just, communism is a reaction to like the fascist, right? And the issue is that you just become fascist again. You know,
in a different way.
And, and it's literally like that we have the answers and the solutions for you, but then all those solutions, they're not grounded. They're not rooted in any truth. So then you fall back into chaos.
Yeah.
And that's what you see that with every country. Right.
Yeah, and I think for Thomas Sowell, and this is something that you mentioned, like you didn't realize he was a Marxist for a lot of years, and he came out of that. I think him really seeking out truth, and we saw this with Malcolm, a bunch of people, they're like seeking out truth in a honest way. You might end up on the wrong path, but eventually that gets righted.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you're constantly seeking.
Yeah.
If you're open to seeing it.
Right.
Yeah, if you settle, like, and that's like you think about, like, man, it's the man. It's the man. The man. And, you know, that was like the 60s, 70s.
And that was wrote into all those blaxploitation movies.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The man.
And what you get is, if you stop there, right?
Yeah.
And you don't go any deeper, and you just hold on to that, like, this is my reason.
Yeah.
You know, for what I do, like, this is my reason, then you limit yourself to staying ignorant.
It's the boogeyman.
You know?
They never, like, think about that. Even for Malcolm to be so deep, Malcolm X I'm talking about, to be so deep into, you know, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and like the white man is the devil, and then to go to Mecca and see something different, it changed his way of thinking and be like, wait a minute, something ain't right there. And then like go on this whole other journey.
Right.
You know, he had the ultimate version of the man. Like the white man is pure evil. He's from the devil. You know what I mean? Like that entire race. That's what they believe.
That's what that was his ground.
And part of that too is Black Americans experience something very unique.
Yeah.
Because it's like this, like two places, Brazil and America are very similar in the sense where the blacks were brutalized very heavily, right?
Yeah.
Not as bad as they made it out to be, but it was. There have been many documented.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And lynchings and
lynchings
the
and things
police
like that.
during Jim Crow, we know were like just wreaking havoc.
Right. So when a young guy like Malcolm X, whose dad was a preacher, by the way, and he was murdered or whatever it is, it's sometimes as a society, we don't understand that we create villains, you know, just like for a young girl who rejects a young guy, he might be a villain. Now he wants to do it to somebody and vice versa, and a guy and all these kind of things. It's like we have to be so careful about how we treat people, because that's what it is.
Right.
And then as soon as these people get an opportunity to hurt you, and this is essentially what it is when Obama was coming into his presidency, even though we voted selfishly, what a lot of the older white people were afraid of was Obama was going to do to them.
Now it's black people's turn to have the power.
That was really the rhetoric,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
And you could hear them talking. And who started doing that a lot? Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
You know, going out, interview them, showing how stupid they are and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And we laughed at it, we giggled. But
he's a Muslim.
Yeah.
Couldn't bring in Sharia law.
yeah.
But it's the same. It's a different side of the same coin.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Because those are the rednecks, and then you got the other people, redneck
Yep.
blacks,
Right.
right? Because both of them are, and that's the point.
Yep.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You don't have any grounding in what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying something because it makes sense, because you're putting something together that kind of fits. That's superstitious, right? And then you have the other side. What are they doing? They putting Obama in front of you because he's a black guy.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was to. He was what do you call it?
Catalyst.
Great speaker.
He was
Shining.
what do they call when people go into communities and get them riled up?
Hype man.
No, I can't think of it. Anyway,
Agitator?
This guy was an activist, but I'm trying to think of the right word. He was a community organizer in that way. Where he would get people together, but not in a good way.
Right.
In a way where, let me talk to you about this.
Right.
How's that make you feel?
Right.
He would prey on people's what the problems people saw, but then give them false solutions. And then organizer, I guess he was an organizer, right? Community organizer, organize them in a way against people. And what happens is it's all lies, right? Now there's truth there, but he's using a truth and connecting it to a lie, right? And then getting people riled up. But the problem is we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all the same in terms of like we're as people, we're actually just all there's no difference.
Yeah.
It's just we have different cultures.
Yeah. And what we don't understand, what a lot of us don't understand, is someone can come in, preach a doctrine, get us hyped up, but never fight the fight with us.
Nope.
They'll get us, go over that mountain. You're going to tear him up. You coming with me? I am going to be back here. I got to talk to them.
And then what we don't understand is over that guy that got you hyped up is someone else that just is using you for their agenda.
Right. And that's, in a sense, what it was. It was him hyping us up. And like I said, for selfish reasons too, but they played on that too, which is our desire to get us right.
Yeah,
it's back in your
black.
face.
My president's black.
So they did that.
Yeah, I remember when he got elected. Like, remember when the Rick Ross song came out, "My President's Black," and then like everybody was like, "Yeah, that's right. Obama's the president, bitch." Like it was just like this era of like we can do what we want now.
Yeah.
So
and
funny.
It was
just nonsense.
But what did it do? It showed what was in people.
Yeah.
Right? Both ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what always it shows us. Like, and if we're willing to see, like, oh, this is in me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We still got a lot going on here.
And then it shows us like, oh, I was duped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was duped to vote for this guy.
Yeah. Paul said, "Thomas Sowell lives matter." He's trying to do his witty comments. Let's keep going on this video, though.
Yeah.
We got some more.
From different localities in southern and western England. Most of the common white people of the South came from the northern borderlands of England. For centuries, a no-man's land between Scotland and England, as well as from the Scottish Highlands and from Ulster County, Ireland. All these fringe areas were turbulent, if not lawless, regions, where none of the contending forces was able to establish full control and create a stable order. Whether called a Celtic fringe or North Britons, these were people from outside the cultural heartland of England, as their behavior on both sides of the Atlantic showed. Before the era of modern transportation and communication, sharp regional differences were both common and persistent. In some of the counties of colonial Virginia, from nearly 3/4 to 4/5 of the people came from northern Britain, and similar proportions were found in some of the counties of Kentucky and Tennessee, as well as in parts of both the Carolinas. Although they predominated in many parts of the South, such people also had some northern enclaves in colonial America, notably western Pennsylvania, where Ulster Scots settled. It is perhaps understandable that the great overwhelming moral, what is at least equally important as where particular people settled, is when they emigrated from the borderlands, Ulster, and the Scottish Highlands. Scotland in particular progressed enormously in the 18th century. The level from which it began may be indicated by the fact that a visitor to late 18th century Edinburgh found it noteworthy that its residents no longer threw sewage from their chamber pots out their windows into the street.
I always used to see that in movies, like people throwing trash into the streets and stuff. And I'd never, that really happened? That's crazy.
Yeah. But it happened in cities where you had mentalities like that, you know?
Oh, kind of like the cities we have now. You guys, did you guys see the new article on the top 3 cities that are being fled the most right now?
No.
San Fran?
San Francisco, number 1. Los Angeles, number 2. New York City, number 3.
Wow.
And the top 3 cities being settled in right now: Tampa,
I was gonna say
Miami, and I think Dallas was number 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't San Fran? San Fran, I think, just passed one of the cities just passed a law that it's okay to defecate in the street.
I wouldn't be surprised, bro. I wouldn't be surprised.
Pretty
One of the other on the top 10 list was San Diego, John. As on the top 10 of the cities people are flooding to is San Diego. It's like number 8 on the list or something like that in the top 10.
Something that passers-by had long had to be alert for to avoid being splattered. Such crude and unsanitary living had long been characteristic of earlier times, when rural Scots lived in the same primitive shelters with their animals, and vermin abounded. A similar lack of concern with cleanliness was found among others in the borderlands of Britain. and among their descendants on the other side of the Atlantic in the antebellum South. For example, a 19th century politician built up a political machine in the poor white districts of Mississippi by such practices as this. He did not resort to any conventional tactics of kissing dirty babies, but he pleased mothers and fathers in log cabins by taking their children upon his lap and searching for red bugs, lice, and other vermin. Back in the British Isles, the life of the Scottish people was transformed dramatically from the masses to the elites as they advanced from being one of the least educated to one of the most educated peoples in Europe. However, what is significant here is that much of the migration to the American South occurred before these sweeping social transformations. This timing was crucial, as Professor Grady McWhiney has pointed out in his book, Cracker Culture. Had the South been peopled by 19th century Scots, Welshmen, and Ulstermen, the course of Southern history would doubtless have been radically different. 19th century Scottish and Scotch-Irish immigrants did in fact fit quite comfortably into Northern American society. Significantly, the Irish, who retained their Celtic ways, did not. But only a trickle of the flood of 19th century immigrants came into the South. The ancestors of the vast majority of Southerners arrived in America before the Anglicization of Scotland, Wales, and Ulster had advanced very far. In earlier centuries, Scotland was a poor and backward country, like Wales and Ireland, and like the turbulent northern borderlands of England, where the Scots and the English fought wars and committed atrocities against each other for centuries. Local feuding clans and freebooting marauders kept this region in an uproar, even when there were no military hostilities between the English and Scottish kingdoms. Ulster County had a different kind of turbulence, as the English and Scottish settlers there encountered the hostility and terrorist activities of the conquered, dispossessed, and embittered indigenous Irish population. These were the parts of Britain from which most people migrated to the American South, before the political and cultural unification of the British Isles or the standardization of the English language. The rednecks of these regions were what one social historian has called some of the most disorderly inhabitants of a deeply disordered land. In this world of impotent laws, daily dangers, and lives that could be snuffed out at any moment, snatching at whatever fleeting pleasures presented themselves was at least understandable. Certainly prudence and long-range planning of one's life had no such payoff in this chaotic world as in more settled and orderly societies under the protection of effective laws. Books, businesses, technology, and science were not the kinds of things likely to be promoted or admired in the world of the rednecks and crackers. Manliness, and the forceful projection of that manliness to others, and advertising of one's willingness to fight, and even to put one's life on the line, were at least plausible means of gaining whatever measure of security was possible in a lawless region and a violent time.
Wow.
I would like his shoes.
It's interesting, right?
That is interesting.
Step on my shoe.
You never, yeah. I mean,
the wrong colors.
Right, right. Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound familiar? Like, yo, I'm gonna take your girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you see how it's been perpetuated.
Yeah.
Not just in America, but in going back into England, because like London, you have that culture, that redneck root culture going back into London, back into Europe, right? Like Netherlands and all these places where you would never see that if it didn't have to do with media. You know, it becomes, because that became the thing that was propped up, right? The hip hop, gangster culture.
Yeah.
All the movies that promoted that, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And part of it
Music.
too is I remember a long time ago I read a book. It was called Steel, Germs, and Wheat. I think it was like that. But it's about a man who traveled to Fiji, and a Fijian man asked him, he's a white guy, how come your people have more than me? Like how is that? And he attempts to answer that. And part of it was, you know, what they're saying here about sanitary condition, because London, England, those northern countries are cold, so people actually slept along with animals and stuff like that. Now, in tropical countries, they really don't do that, and then
Way more parasites.
So you know, even the tribal people, when it came time to use the bathroom, they would go out to a certain area. All those, did you guys know that part of the architecture of those old castles. Those it looked like, I guess it would be a steeple.
Yeah.
All right. There was a portion of it that was really a latrine. And people would just go and you would just, defecate out of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all of those kind of things led to disease and all stuff, like people throwing stuff on the street. That's just how it was.
And they wonder where the bubonic plague came from.
Yeah, we never. Yeah.
All right, so this is the first clip where we're actually seeing Thomas Sowell speak. So we'll play a little bit of this.
Average of black kid today, I think, is probably better off, certainly materially, than say Ben.
This is a great interview, by the way. Like,
yeah,
for
watch that whole
anybody who watched this whole interview.
Yeah.
When you get a chance.
Ben Carson was when he was growing up.
Ben Carson, the famous
black
surgeon at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
Who is immensely accomplished in every way.
Yes.
Right.
I would say that certainly the black kids who are growing up today have a higher material standard of living than I had. The difference was that the schools were good when I came along. They were especially good in New York at that time, hard as that is to believe. But the kids who grew up in that same place where I lived, they will not get that same education. Now that can be blamed on somebody, but it has very little to do with what happened 100 or 200 years ago. And it's true in other countries. I mean, in Nigeria, for example, there's a tribe, the Igbos, who are living in one of the least fertile parts of Nigeria, who were in fact enslaved in centuries past by other tribes and so on. When the British moved in and set up schools, the Igbos went for the schools. By the time Nigeria became independent, the Igbos had climbed above the other groups that had been ahead of them to begin with. But there are all kinds of cross currents of factors. The particular culture, or the particular geography, you run through the whole list of them.
You cite, in Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist, James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today.
This is important.
Yeah,
and
this
both
is
black
great.
and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Quoting Intellectuals and Race, Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany, and now you're quoting Professor Flynn, grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this the...
No. The expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So they had...
There's no gangster rap.
I can attest to that.
That was pervasively available in Germany.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm getting. There is something about
gangster rap.
Black subculture in America today that holds African Americans themselves back?
Yes.
We can attest to that too, because we know, particularly, especially once we moved to Williamstown, and people that we grew up with, they grew up in amazing households that were influenced by the culture of rap that sent them down a path that they shouldn't have gone down, and then ended up incarcerated or just
so not street dudes, but
not street dudes at all.
But
didn't even grow up around that.
Yeah.
Parents completely.
I witnessed that myself.
Yeah, I'm sure you did in Voorhees. Same thing.
But desired to be because of
the cultural subculture.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because, like I said, when I came here, I was 14. So there was none of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that Calypso and all those other things were any
reggae.
Yeah, it wasn't that.
There was a different subculture.
Yeah, it was different. Dancehall was being introduced, but I would say this: that is absolutely, if you're honest with yourself and you stop and think, and you got. See, the thing is, a lot of times people try to rationalize the things they like, and they can't look at it because it's like it's so ingrained into like the fabric of my youth.
Yeah,
and everything about me. I love this.
That was that argument we had during the Super Bowl about Jay-Z.
Right.
It's so
You want to defend it.
Yeah.
But if you would stop and listen to what he's saying, is that the subculture comes in and it really infects you because you, like you guys are talking about, and I know a lot of the kids that I went to school with, black kids, their parents were actually CEOs and executives.
Right.
A lot of them were well to do.
Yeah.
And the way they acted was a copying. Now, at that time, I remember. Now, I like I said, the way I grew up, I grew up in like I said, that part of Trinidad that was very rural and stuff like that. So I'm like, you guys, poverty, like you no running water, like latrines, like that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like
real poverty.
This is
no
nothing.
electricity, one TV in the whole village.
Yes.
Like,
but it was. See, you're coming from a place that like you don't want really to be a part of that. You want more,
right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're here where they have more, but yet they're glorifying poverty.
Yeah, and I get it. I was like, what?
Right. Why would you want to be identified with poverty?
Why would you want to? You know, but I think what people don't understand is they're struggling with, because what they're hearing there is this subculture rap is bad.
Yeah.
And they can't let it go.
Yeah.
But when you really look at it and say, well, what is this pushing? What's the mindset?
Yeah. I think it has to do with identity. You know, like what
they identify
who am
with
I?
it. Yeah.
What, you know, and you see this a lot in, I would say, suburban culture. You see this with like what people like. Me and Jane were talking about this the other day. How like we went to visit my wife's cousins while we went to Tampa while we were in Florida, and she was like talking about how much she loves Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Right?
Who's that?
Okay. He's a Puerto Rican guy who makes music.
Yeah.
Right. Running out of names.
And you know, she's like almost 40,
right?
If not in her 40s. And so I'm like,
and we gotta go.
Yeah. so like, and she's like obsessed, you know, like the way she's like owning it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I said to her, why do you like him?
Simple question.
And I mean, yeah, what's the reason? Tell me, explain it to me. And like, I don't know. He's this and he's that, and it was like so superficial.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, so it's not anything really deep. And then she was talking about how much she liked NSYNC back in the day, right? And I was thinking about this, and I told you about this. Like I was thinking about how we got to identity to the point where there's 100 and something genders, right?
Right.
Where you can be called all these different things now, right?
Because I mean, there's infinite at this point. I mean, you talking about?
I mean,
we've shown some
turtle.
We've shown some genders on here that,
right. But how we got there? But how we got there?
I identify as fish self and fish.
But how do we get there? And we got there through marketing.
Yeah.
And the marketing, especially in suburban households, you need to have something that you like and you like.
Right.
Like you think about the, New Kids on the Block, right? And I like Donnie. I like this one. I don't know all the names, but
right. No, we talked about that. We talked about that.
And
it's
how
like, which one do you like?
I identify with this one,
right,
and that one, or and it's almost like you have to hold on to these things. Ninja Turtles for us,
right?
You know what I mean,
I was Donatello, bro, the smart one. You know, I had
but it became ingrained in our culture about who you identify with, and also like nobody can question you on it. Like, no, this is mine.
Right.
This is for me. Right. And it's like, but nobody's going deep on it. Like, but why?
Why do you like that?
But why? Some of it might be good.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is like not even questioned.
Yeah.
Starting to pick.
Yeah.
And then it becomes like you're not allowed to question.
Right.
And that's where we're at now.
That's where we're at.
You know what I mean? We're at like to the point where it's like,
Yeah.
You're 40 years old trying to explain away
Right.
Bad Bunny.
who are you? No,
Dude,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we're at now where you want to be a wolf.
I saw.
You say you're a wolf.
I saw something on Twitter that was funny as hell. I was going to send it to you and I forgot. It was about that. It was a clip of, I think it was Family Guy, where a dude was at like a corporate meeting and he was like, I'm going to talk to you guys about gender identity and what I identify, or something like that. And the person was like, asked the question like, what do you identify as? And he was like, the fact that you're asking me that question makes me offended, so therefore I'm going to tweet about it right now and I'm going to get you fired from your job. It was like this whole thing, like he got them fired right on the spot because he was offended about the fact that they asked him about the question that he was presenting to them in the meeting.
But he was there to present it.
Yeah, he was there to present it. It was like that same thing. You can't even ask. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's where we get into bad, because now you are holding on to something that's very superficial.
Yeah.
And very superstitious.
Yeah.
It's superstitious because you just want to think this thing is good for you and you don't want to know why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And these are the issues we're having now. And all it takes is for people to hold people accountable. Like, you don't get to just say you do that for what?
Right.
So, and then sometimes, like, again, like, so I was there, I'm asking the question, well, why?
Yeah.
But
imagine if someone asked us, like, when we were younger, why do you like DMX?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Why do you like Jay-Z?
Right.
What is it about
What-
it that
what-
you
yeah.
like? You know?
Rebellion.
Yeah. Beanie Siegel.
Mm-hmm.
Rebels.
What is it about that
Right.
you like? He's rapping about the block. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you know about that?
But even if you do know, like, what's good about that?
Yeah.
Like, explain to me what's good.
Right.
How
Why
do
do
you
you
see
like
it?
it? Yeah.
And how do you think it's good? And we're not. And that's just one situation that I was in. But I do that all the time with people.
Yeah.
Because I want to challenge them a little
Yeah.
bit. So they have to give me an explanation because they don't. Most of the time, people don't even think about these
Right.
things. You know.
Well, part of it too is I don't think we have a system and measure for ushering boys and girls from boyhood and girlhood to womanhood.
No, we
and
don't.
men. So when they get to a certain age, masculinity becomes the bravado. You know, this is just a bravado thing, right? So here it becomes how fast can you dunk a ball? You know, you get girls. You know?
Yeah.
Like within the black community, you get more props for being a womanizer and a drug dealer than you do a PhD.
Right.
You know what I
He
mean?
was talking about Ben Carson in that clip
Yeah,
we just
that's
watched.
exactly
Ben
what it
Carson is probably one of the smartest neurosurgeons.
hated.
And people, the black people don't identify with him at all. They're like, we don't want that guy. Give us LeBron James.
I mean, but that's basketball, right? Sports or rap
Or entertainment, yeah.
They give us
Yeah.
that. But
Singers.
we don't usher. We don't usher boys. I'm specifically talking about men. We're not ushering them from one stage of their lives, and they're literally leaving their adolescence.
Yeah.
And it's a pivotal point in life because your teenage years is where you shape your personality. It's not who you are yet, but
Yeah.
it's the beginning stages of like what you like. And you're going to spend the next 5 years liking something. You may teeter-totter on off of other ideas, but essentially right then and there is where you're going to shape the core of who you are. And some of those decisions have lifelong consequences.
Yep.
And because we're not sitting them down to talk about this, and the reason I know this is that growing up in the culture I grew up in, it was shameful. It was a shame. You know, you my story about my mom, my dad. It was a shameful thing to do certain things.
Yeah.
It was just shame attached to it. But it was more this. You're going to shame the family name. Right? You're going to shame the family name. You don't want to be ashamed. You know what I'm saying? And I think what we have done here through this type of culture is this. We've glorified it. Don't you judge me. So
Right.
what? You know what I
Right.
mean? We just watched a video of a young woman with the McDonald's thing. I don't know if you guys saw that, but she's attempting to shame this guy And it backfired on her.
For bringing food to her
For bringing
son.
food to her.
To his son.
To his son.
To his son and not the other kid.
Not the other
that's
kids that she
not
had
his
with other
son.
men.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And why did she do that? Why was she trying to shame a man who's bringing food for his child and not the other children she had with other men? Was because she lives in a time when no one told her this is bad.
Yeah.
You know, this is bad. So she's on there trying to publicly shame this guy. I mean, it backfired on
Yeah.
her. But how did she get there?
But it backfired on her, but I don't even think she learned her lesson.
No, she definitely did.
Because she came on there with her, you know, her wig and her nails all done talking about.
But what we're saying is if you keep promoting that, then you'll see more people being ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Well,
yeah.
This is what you get when you don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to expose it for the ones that are willing to wake up
to see it.
Have you guys watched this Netflix documentary about the Mormons?
Shaniqua did.
No.
Dude, in freaking Saint the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints church.
Yeah.
And like how they found out that like dude, like the main guys were, you know, had like 80 wives, 20% of them were underage. You know what I mean? Like crazy stuff they were doing. Like they found tapes of this dude like just saying the worst things to 12-year-old girls. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they still are following this guy as he's in jail. He's doing sermons from prison. Because there's certain people that just will never wake up. You know what I mean? Because they just are so indoctrinated. They're so identified with what that is. They believe he's the prophet. You know what I mean? So there's like the ones that woke up from it, they left and they're trying to live their lives. Now they're trying to make sense of it. But there's thousands of people that still live there in the commune that he set up as he's in prison and waiting for his word from God every week from prison on speakerphone.
God is going to collect.
And that's where, like, one of the comments from the first guy we were listening to.
Yeah.
He was like, the similarities between rednecks and blacks. One of the things he said, they both love Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you gotta really. You can't just say that.
Yeah.
Like to him, maybe he doesn't believe in God. Or whatever.
So to him, that's like
I don't think he does.
I don't think so.
Exactly. As much as imagine he was just cursed. But the thing is, they believe in a Jesus in a way where it's not foundational and they can't explain it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can't articulate it, I should say, even better.
They believe in a Jesus that's gonna rescue them from their situation.
Well,
but that's how it's been presented to them too.
At most point.
What I'm saying is they can't articulate it because they haven't allowed themselves to be cultivated in that.
Right.
Right. And it's connected to, again, the fear of the Lord being the beginning of knowledge or the beginning of wisdom, both of those things. The spirit of truth, right, is there's 7 spirits connected to the spirit of truth, right? Each one of them represent light, right? The spirit of fear of the Lord, spirit of Yahweh, spirit of knowledge, spirit of understanding, spirit of wisdom, spirit of counsel, spirit of might. All these things are connected to light, right? All these things are connected to when you have light, you see from a different perspective that you couldn't see before, right? It reveals something in a way where you couldn't see it. So this light, this lampstand, which is 7 lights, they're connected to all these spirits I just talked about, is in the tabernacle, right? It's in the place of the truth, right? You have the way, the truth, and the life. So it's in the second area, which is the holy place, which is the truth, right? And then it's shining on the showbread, right? Which is the bread is what you take in. It's you see it, but the light has a shine on it, so you can receive it in the right way.
Right.
And all this stuff is connected to Jesus, right? It's showing us that God is the Word, and it's all about how we receive that Word, right? How we take it in, right? The light has to shine on that Word so that we can receive it in the right way. Perception, perspective, and a lot of times we get people who just get what was regurgitated by somebody that's chewing into your mouth.
Right,
You
right,
know what I mean?
right.
Stuff that they ate and then they're regurgitating.
They're feeding
into your
off
mouth.
of someone who's imitating.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't know because they're not going to seek out the truth.
Courtney said, same with young women going into womanhood in the black community. It's praised to be a hot girl and have a hot girl summer. And then a frowny, sad face emoji.
And a VD winter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but again, I think to your point, James, like that is reactionary. That's the pendulum swinging from men, you know, from big pimping culture. You know what I mean? So now women are saying, well, I'm a have a hot girl summer then. You know what I mean? I'm going to get mine.
Yeah.
And I think that is being praised in a way, but it's also reactionary. You know what I
But
mean?
it's always that way.
Yeah.
Like that's how you get the fighting, the infighting. That's how you stay in the place of we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but why are we always wrestling against, you know, Ephesians 6, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, might and dominion in high places. But the problem is that we're fighting. We're always fighting each other. Why? Because somebody did something to me, I gotta do it to them, right? Well, and that's again, I'm talking about the light. You can't see but from the perspective you're always under, the light you go to. So now your perspective is always skewed. And if you're always looking at what somebody did to you, now you're going to look at what you're going to do to them because of what they did to you, right? But that's why Jesus said, forgive those, right, who use you. He says to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. If you don't forgive, how can he forgive you in heaven? You'll never be able to see if you don't let go of the things that were done to you.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we're just fighting. We wound each other back and forth. That's why marriage is so key. Because marriage, we learn how to really become one with. How can I kill my own flesh? Like, how can I try to kill myself? But when I'm married, it's really about this woman is me.
Yeah.
She's a part of me.
Right.
Right. And I'm learning how she is a part of me. Every time we have issues, every time we have things that we're separated, right? And we're wounding each other with words, we learn how to forgive each other. That's why, again, family is the most important thing because it starts with a man and a woman. And from that place, it grows. Love starts there. And this whole battle between man and women, you know, you've seen it.
The manosphere.
With the manosphere and all this stuff. Like, the reason why it's so bad is because everybody's caught up in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're all caught up in themselves. And when you're caught up in yourselves, all you can see is yourself. You know what I mean? And you're just seeing it through other people. All you're doing is looking at them and seeing yourself through them, but you just,
She wrote a novel there.
Yeah. Let me read this. Stephanie said, white communities, Asian communities, black communities have all been influenced. Copying is a big deal. In Hawaii, you are put in 3 different categories. You are Hawaiian, you are Kamayani, or you are Haole. If you are not indigenous, you start off. I don't know how to pronounce these words. You start off like that, but can quickly become Kamayani if you adopt the Hawaiian way of life. You will never be Hawaiian, though, if you weren't born with Hawaiian blood, but will be respected if you take on full heartedly the Hawaiian culture. That doesn't even sound like America. It sounds like a different. Well,
it's really not.
Yeah, it's really not. Yeah. My white husband, who I met in Hawaii, experienced his very first experience of racism. He couldn't wait to leave. I wanted to stay, but I love him, so I left.
Yeah, but you're going to get it everywhere because this is how we look at and view the world.
Yeah.
It's through self-reflection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what God does is he teaches us how not to look at the world through our eyes, but how to look at the world through his eyes.
Yeah.
You know, it's a total, and it's something we learn.
And even like that, you could totally dismantle that whole thing. Like, what is Hawaiian? That's like saying Puerto Rican blood. Like, what is Hawaiian blood? You know what I mean? Like,
I think she's probably referring to like if you're indigenous.
Yeah, but
to the island,
even that is like, is that where they originated though?
Right.
Didn't they come from somewhere else?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Somebody settled
you're not
somewhere.
technically.
So you're the guy over there talking, but are you though?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at it in like a few hundred years,
Yeah.
right, then yeah, that makes sense. But when you look at like we always tend to scale things in a very short window,
Yeah.
right? But I think about this with God, like that's not how he sees it. You know what I mean? He sees everything and how
the whole grasp of it. Yeah.
But like, you know, the Caribbean is so different because we all know that the original, the Caribs and the Arawaks, you guys call them Taino, but that's what they were.
Yeah.
They're the original inhabitants of those islands, you know. But Puerto Rico, when you say 100%,
Yeah, but they came from somewhere too.
Yeah, from
You know
South
what I mean?
America. They all came from that. They followed that.
Which came from somewhere too. So it's like to say they're indigenous.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like the world formed and they
No,
were there.
no,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
like
no.
so they originate their blood. What I'm saying is like their DNA, their blood originates from somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. To me, it's just always silly to just try to act like, you know, we own this because we're indigenous. Like,
right.
Well, no one is indigenous.
Yeah, but that whole concept though didn't come about until, because even when you go back in time, a lot of them they didn't understand. Most of the tribes didn't understand the idea of land ownership belonging to them.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah.
like, no one
Right.
has owned this.
That's true.
You know. But after a while, the generations that came before them, when they understood what was happening in colonialization, they were like, this is mine and I'm
Yeah,
this.
right.
But before that, if you go back and you talk
I
to
don't
those other people, they rarely had it. They couldn't understand that.
That's what they tell you, but they might
still
not have
fought over territory.
They might not.
They
Yeah,
did
it
do
might
that
not
all
been
the
in
time.
the same exact way, but they fought over territory.
They went to war over territory.
Yeah, but it was more to do with hunting. Like it was more to do with like the buffalo went through here.
I don't know about them.
Yeah,
you know about the history of the Aztecs, the Mayans.
Yeah.
The what's the one from North America that was
Comanche.
The Comanche. Like,
Yeah.
nah, these people
Somewhat different.
They fought for territory. Like
Yeah.
they occupied space.
But they didn't have a flag.
they didn't have a flag.
But yeah, they definitely
Kinda
occupied.
same.
Yeah.
Which tells you that human nature, like even though you might see things in a different way, human nature is human nature.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like we live here. You
Yeah.
can't come here. You know, we're
And that's what people are gonna do. People are always gonna try and take
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
You know, as you begin to.
Yeah.
You know,
Because even that story of like how they bought Manhattan for like pennies or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you buy something if they don't think they own it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, how do you buy it if they don't think they have possession of it? I don't know. It's just always weird. All right, man. Are we gonna keep going on this?
I mean,
We're at
it's
3
late.
hours.
Yeah.
And stop.
Yeah. Hey guys, appreciate you guys sticking with us. We got through a lot of it.
Yeah.
Go check out some more videos on Thomas Sowell. Like that interview itself, there's so many jewels in there. He drops a lot of gems in there.
Yeah. He speaks about economics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say before we end, because I think it's key, because he went into it. We didn't get to it though, but he talked about how, and we talked about this before, about how until the 1960s, African Americans were
thriving
in certain areas. I mean, of course, there's always going to be
of course.
places where you're not thriving.
But that's every
but in terms of family life, you know,
Yeah.
22%.
Yeah.
Only 22% were having babies out of wedlock.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where now go to 1990s and it's
80 something.
Well, 70 something percent.
75.
Oh, in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about now.
So, and why did that happen? Because of solutions that came from
Solutions.
Yeah, you put quotes around that.
Yeah.
Yes. these solutions that came from Democrats that sold you things, that sold the black people, the black communities things that seemed good, right? That seemed like good ideas at the time, but turned out to be total
Destruction.
total chaos and
Degradation
corruption
of the black culture.
right? And you see that get worse and worse up into Obama, right? Where now you got the embodiment of a man who is straight up the superficial and superstitious things that you've allowed yourself to ignorantly follow, right? Because he's not for anything really, right?
Yeah.
He's just embodying these things to get you to give up on what you have. So you see how in the 60s all the way up to Obama, it really like coalesced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in
with
fact,
him.
it's so heartbreaking because the very man that created a bill to rip fathers and people out of the community, he is now rewarded with the highest honor.
Yeah.
So the man who orchestrated your
Meanwhile,
demise,
his son under that same bill is not affected.
is not affected by that.
Yeah.
And he then has
Which
the
is?
audacity to say,
The crime bill, the
crime bill.
1990 crime bill.
Oh, you talking about Biden?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
talking about Biden. We're talking
It-
about that video of him talking about this size of crack cocaine.
I don't care.
Yeah.
yeah. And you see, the thing is that's how delusional we have become because we are so focused on the team thing that we're now watching the destruction of. We're participating in it. You know what I mean? We're participating in it because how many people were affected by this? When you really look at the effect of the crime bill and other societies, by the way, Greece, Spain, Portugal, have all adopted the drug laws and the war on drugs, and they've abandoned it because of that, right? So when we don't stop to listen to men like Dr. Thomas Sowell and people who understand these things, I'm not saying that he has all the answers, but it's a start to find out, well, where did we get this from? That's all we're attempting here to show, that this is not unique to black Southern culture. This came from somewhere, and we picked it up, and we never understood what it was, and we just ran with it, and it's infecting us. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. It's the love of something. It's you're loving it more than you're watching it destroy your family.
And it's culture. It's culture. And that's my point with Obama, because Obama, and not just Obama, but I'm saying he was like the culmination of it. Because you've seen it with Bill Clinton, you know, playing the. I remember my dad, he's playing the saxophone, and
he's our first black president. People say that all the time.
What did he say? I didn't inhale, but I, you know,
cool guy.
Yeah.
So, but that's all he's doing is he's playing a caricature that you will like, and it's very superficial. It's very superficial.
Hot sauce in my bag swag, like
Right.
Hillary.
Like Hillary, right?
but she that worked,
right? And you
at the time,
it did,
dude.
Now it seems ridiculous, but it worked at the time.
And you look at like, if you can learn people's cultures, and you can, because think about it, Obama didn't come from the black culture.
Nope.
No, he's not. He's
Totally
that's actually,
not.
You know, I got to give my dad credit for me. Just for me, my
Yeah.
dad said he's not a product of slavery, and
Yeah.
I remember being offended
Yeah.
by that
And not understanding
And
what's the
he
difference.
told me that he's like
black.
he's like, son, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, you don't know what you're talking. But I had already identified
Yeah.
with the victim
Right,
mentality
right.
in terms of like, nah, this is back in
Yeah,
their face,
right.
free healthcare. You know, I identified. with it.
But what he did was he took it and he used it for his benefit.
Yep.
See, he
came up there, sang some Al Green. Everybody
he
fell in
used
love.
it for his
Yeah.
for his benefit.
Yep.
But portrayed it that it was for your benefit.
Right. Meanwhile, his lived experience is nothing like that. Grew up in Hawaii with his white mom. His dad is from Africa, an activist out there. He spent time overseas in England and in where was he at? In Indonesia. You know what I mean? Like he didn't grow up in the hood. He didn't grow up as a ADOS.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this is the elitist mentality that you brought up with the media, how media turned that way. This is the elitist mentality that believes that it has the answers. You know where communism came out of? Elitism.
Yeah.
It came out of the spoiled brats. They wanted to do something differently, right? But on their terms.
But that's where it is now with socialism. These spoiled brats that want to do something different.
It never changed.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like these people are so obnoxious that they think they have the answers.
Right.
Right? And it can only come from them. And it's your benefit that they'll be your benefactor.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And Jesus spoke about this in Luke 22 when the disciples were arguing about who's going to be the greatest, right? And he spoke about the benefactors, and he spoke about how not to be like the people, the kings and the benefactors in the world. And what does it mean to be a benefactor? It means to be able to give to people, to be a donor, to be some. It looks nice, right? It looks like you're a philanthropist. Say that word for me, please.
Philanthropist. Yeah, you got it.
I got it. You're. I hate words like that. Anyway,
we need a word board.
So, but they portray this aura of they're helping, they're doing good for you, right? They're benefiting you, but really, they're just trying to rule over you.
And they're setting up principalities and powers on an earthly level. Because let me explain this. If we didn't have technology, Hunter Biden is running for president.
That's true.
And he is going to win. My dad served.
Right.
Don't worry about me. If we
right.
didn't have technology to know that. You see, we live in a unique time where technology is a curse and a blessing at the same time. But if we didn't have it,
Hunter was going to be part of the legacy.
Son.
Yeah.
He and we wouldn't know.
Well, news media,
we wouldn't.
Was still legacy news media would still be thriving.
Yeah, they would be. They'd be on top of everything.
Yeah.
But it's the portrayal of those things.
Stephanie is talking about surfing spots in Hawaii that have dahui carved on the trees. It's like the mob in Hawaii. If you're there and alive, you've been invited. And she says, seriously, look into the Hawaiian coming into the U.S. They were literally forced. I'm 1/4 Comanche. Name me one Comanche reservation. I don't know, but that's interesting. Like, you never think about that, like, because I have heard about that about Hawaii, about how like they're not, like if you're not a local, if you're not indigenous, like there's certain areas where you can't go. You know?
Right. Well, I mean, like what he was saying. Hey, listen, all human beings.
Yeah.
We all. That's it.
Yep.
That's just the fall of man. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wretched man.
And I think the difference between what Jesus said and the difference between what you can fall into and what makes this country so great is that if you take responsibility, and I think that's what's so great about Thomas Sowell, because this man has written books upon books about this stuff. So even when he dies, this stuff is going to be around.
Yeah.
And you know, he's done work to help generations.
Yep.
Right? He's left behind a legacy.
Yeah.
And the point is that that's how you serve people. And Jesus said that if you want to be the greatest, you have to serve.
You have to serve.
You have to be like this child.
The first shall be last.
You have to be like a young one. And the point of that is, if you think, go back to what we talked, Elizabeth, what's her name? Holmes, who I want to be a helper of society. I want to do good. I want to change the world.
Yeah.
Right? You get these grandiose because you want to fulfill your own stuff in you, and
you want to matter.
You want to matter and show that you matter, right? And that right there is the problem. And when you realize that we're all the same, and none of us matter if it wasn't for God.
Yeah.
Now Jesus did it first. He laid down his life and became a servant for all, so that they could come into everything he had.
Right.
That's the point. To be a servant. See, these people like Obama, these elites, these kings, they don't want to serve you anything.
No.
They don't want to give you anything. They want to. Only thing they're going to give you is to enslave you. The only thing they're going to give you is to entrap you, so that you don't have no knowledge, no understanding, no wisdom, right? No education, no light to be able to come out of your darkness that you're in. That's what they're about. But what God is about is to give you understanding.
Well, that's how they can build their wealth. They can build their wealth on you.
Well, that's the only reason why they have wealth. Yeah. But the wealth leaves once you see. The only reason why you hold on to wealth is because if you get it in the wrong way, is because you make everybody ignorant of how you got it. And now they become subservient to you.
That's why he can build the mansion on the beach.
Yeah.
But you can't because it's
climate change.
Yeah.
Right.
And the beaches are going to all flood.
You could have mentioned that kind of stuff.
But wait, your house ain't going to flood?
Yeah.
You just built an $8 million mansion on the beach.
Statistics have shown that by the year 2030, the beaches will flood. What is yours doing there? Don't mind this beach, not this one.
Right.
Not this one. Go away.
What beach do you go to? That one.
Beaches with poor people?
All right, guys, let's wrap it up. It's 11:44. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We still got people in here watching. Appreciate each and every one of y'all. This was a serious conversation. I implore you to go research more of Thomas Sowell's work.
And Dr. Walter E. Williams as well.
Walter E. Williams.
Mr. Milton Friedman.
Look them up. Highly intellectual people, economists, just very studied, and a different perspective than what you probably have heard before.
Right.
So,
Great spell.
And they've done the research. But Walter E. Williams is passed away now, and so is Milton Friedman. But these guys basically will give you an insight on how we're here and how we got here.
Yeah.
So it's just going to free you from these ideas that we have of what's going on. And Walter and Dr. Thomas Sowell will break down culturally. He goes more into that.
Right.
It gives you hope. Like, I think that's the key. Like,
it does.
Because a lot of these things, they just make you feel like
what
it's
do we
hopeless.
do? Yeah,
like,
what do we do?
And then let me just give it to somebody who can do it, because I can't do anything.
And then people who have done the research, like you said.
Yeah. But yeah, in the meantime, man, make sure you got Paul said, good one, guys. Thank you, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you sticking with us and watching through this one. Listen, guys, hit that share button. It's the best thing you can do to help us with this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're on Rumble, share this, please. Hit the like button also. Just help with the algorithm. But also we have the Patreon if you want to become a member, if you want to support, if you want to help these conversations get to more people, you can sign up on there, patreon.com/youngliontv. Hit it up, become a member. We're going to be dropping more content on there that you don't see on here, stuff that we can get really in depth with and talk about candidly without the worrying about the censorship of YouTube and Facebook and whatever. But also merch and music on Jatan.com. Keep following us, guys. Hit us on the Cash App if you want to throw a donation. Young Lion TV on there. Simple to do. And we got a show coming up August 27th. If you want to see us live, if you're in the Philly area at the Gathering Place, you can see information on that on our Facebook page, Jatan on Facebook. But yeah, other than that, appreciate you guys for sticking with us. We will see you guys next week, and we're out.
Young Lion go live, yeah. Young Lion, you rich, yeah.